Christmas boogie. We're dancing to the beat. We'll make you move your feet. Simpsons Christmas boogie.
Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. I am your host, John Garcia. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, right? That's what we say right now.
Sure. Some people say that.
Yeah, and of course, some people say thrill ho ho ho.
I prefer that. I prefer that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I already feel jolly, and I only put in my name. I'm your host, John Garcia. With me, as always, is Michael Dixon.
What's up, John? Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and whatever you celebrate. Happy to be here tonight.
What does Krusty say? Like a crazy Kwanzaa and tip top tet. And also joining us is our wonderful guest returning, my brother, Mark Garcia.
The podcast isn't in my house. It's at Dixon's house, John's house.
Hey, what are you doing my podcast, Dixon?
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, happy to do it. And I figured it was only appropriate that we bring you on because in this episode, as folks have probably noticed by the thumbnail on it, we're going to be talking about The Simpsons.
Are you tired of the same old Christmas shows? Well, so are the Simpsons.
Hey, Santa, what's shaking, man?
That's why America's funniest new family is starring in their very own Christmas comedy.
When do we get paid?
They're coming to save the holidays.
Hey, little one, Santa's back. Oh, no!
The Simpsons Christmas special, Sunday on Fox.
The Simpsons holidays specifically, like the holiday episodes, and even more specific than that, 3 of them from like the golden years of The Simpsons.
Hell yeah.
Whereas, as Mark called it before we started recording, the Bart Fucks Up Christmas trilogy.
Yep.
Which is absolutely what they are. And we're not only going to be talking about that, we would be weaving in and out of potentially other holiday specials as we go. It's something that we were trying to think on. What do we do? You know, every season, every Christmas season, I always think the same thing. It's what exactly do I want to buy for my friends, and what kind of episode am I going to make for a podcast? At least recently, that's been top of mind. So, well, just to kind of kick things off, let's talk about the first episode that we're going to discuss. It's the very first episode of the entire series. It is Simpsons roasting on an open fire. And that episode is about Homer not getting his Christmas bonus and the family adopting Santa's little helper because of a bunch of mix-ups and kind of happenstances. If you have not seen that episode, I mean, it's a good place to start, honestly. Like, they did right.
It's the first one.
The first one. I feel like a lot of other TV shows, I don't really know what like the first episode of, I wish Ryan was here as well because Ryan does his research and I'm sure he would have
Ryan
gone
didn't
and watched.
fucking show up again.
Yeah, here it is. But this time he told us he wasn't going to show up, so it's okay. But usually like other TV shows at that time, I feel like the first episode is here's an ordinary circumstance. It's like a sitcom. You're just trying to establish who the characters are and the family. You really don't lead with like there's not going to be a Christmas this year story.
Yeah.
And it seems like a bold choice to come right out the gate with that. But I mean, the longer you sit with The Simpsons, I feel like you get to know that there's a lot of heart that needs to be in it to actually make it work. It can't just be like Family Guy-ish jokes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the first episode has a lot of like subtle humor, like sublime, I would say, jokes, not so much like laugh out loud. I don't know if y'all have particular ones that you laughed at.
I think the thing is too that you have to remember that at that time, there weren't a whole lot of adult-centric cartoons or animated series on TV. Like The Simpsons really kind of paved the way, because before that you had things like the Flintstones and the Jetsons that might make some like general references, but they were still very much for kids.
Except for the commercials from the Flintstones.
Yes,
those were for cigarettes.
When they were for cigarettes, that was a completely different time. I definitely don't forget watching those commercials in the television class I took in college. But the whole first season, I feel, of The Simpsons kind of toes that line where it's not necessarily always like the laugh out loud funny moments you get in the later seasons. and they were still kind of finding the characters. I mean, if you look at Homer in this one, there are definitely moments in future seasons where he is still, going to great lengths to make members of his family happy and pleased. But they definitely lean a lot more into the dumber side of Homer as the series runs. Yep. Whereas in this one, it was very much more the traditional husband role in a sitcom, like trying to provide for the family and be the breadwinner. And so, when Bart fucks Christmas, episode 1, and he goes to get a tattoo and uses essentially the family savings that Marge has to have it removed by lasers, Homer not getting his Christmas bonus means he now has to be a mall Santa to make ends meet so that he can provide his family with a happy Christmas. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that we didn't see a whole lot of jokes and that they kind of leaned into it being a more serious kind of situation, because if you're going to have people take the whole series seriously and understand this is for adults, you have to provide those kinds of situations, I think, to be like, hey, yeah, it's a cartoon. There might be some fun in it later down the line, but we're also going to be serious when we need to be serious.
Yeah, there are real stakes here.
Yeah, I think...
And squeaky ones, too.
Yeah, that's right. Good point.
You dropped your pork chop.
I think The Simpsons is interesting because, a lot of times we think of it as this zany cartoon comedy, and it's really not that. And especially at the beginning, it wasn't. And I feel like The Simpsons is actually a lot more realistic than most sitcoms from the time, where a lot of times, in the 80s and earlier, you have sitcoms about well-to-do families that are dealing with rich people problems, and you're not really looking at the heart and soul of a true middle American family that's working class, that is just trying to get by paycheck to paycheck and figure things out, right? And most American families have to deal with life like The Simpsons do in a difficult way, where you're just trying to make ends meet and figure out how to get your kids something, anything for Christmas to make them happy and keep the illusion of Santa and Christmas and Jesus and America going and all that. And I think it's just it's incredibly interesting to me to think about going back to the original Simpsons episode, and even the earlier, first 3 seasons are just very grounded and really based in reality of what it's like to be a working class family in America, and how hey, sometimes your boss decides that he doesn't want to give you a Christmas bonus because he doesn't want to impact management pay raises, and you're fucked. And that is what it is, and you have to deal with it. I think there are a lot of funny stuff a lot of funny things in the episode, but they're more about kind of just situational things more than there are laugh out loud jokes. But I love the bit when they're at the dog track and Homer's like, I don't want to leave till our dog finishes. And they just sit there for 10 seconds. He's like, oh, fuck it, let's go. There are little bits like that are funny lines that you remember, but a lot of it is just situational stuff. I thought it was hilarious when Homer gets $13 for working for weeks as a mall Santa. And he gets charged for Santa suit purchase, Santa training, beard rental, all of these things. It's of fucking course that's what they would do. That's exactly what would happen. Yep. That's probably exactly how mall Santas are treated. And you probably don't make any money until your second year, when you don't have to go to training and you own the suit and you can buy your own beard,
It's an MLM for mall Santa.
Well, yeah. And I mean, honestly, fast forward to, you're saying, Dixon, the relatability of that. I was listening to a podcast on my way here talking about how Microsoft at the beginning of the year laid off 10,000 employees while at the same time closing a $68 billion Activision acquisition deal. Mm-hmm. And it's this does not compute. And it's the exact same fucking thing with the mall Santas. It's relatable to working class individuals, where it's of course they're going to make you foot that bill instead of them footing that bill.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I the other thing that I remember from this, beyond the $13 and Homer betting everything on Santa's Little Helper because it's a sign, was when Bart yanks his beard off and he takes him into the elf shack and Bart's just wow, Dad, I never thought you'd have to stoop this low. And just talking about him working another job to make up for Bart's mistake. I was yeah, that's Bart just constantly. He's honest about everything, just speaks his mind openly and just a little punk. But also the daydreams, there's already kind of I feel this episode does a lot to establish that, hey, even though it is a cartoon, it can be grounded and do this. There are also moments where it's oh, but we can also do a dream sequence that happens this way, and it establishes some surreal boundaries that the cartoon format wants to exploit. And of course, like later, we see a lot of that come up in other episodes. I think specifically about, is it the episode where Homer meets Mindy and he thinks about Barney in a bikini?
Yes.
Like polka dot bikini.
Doing
the
I Dream of Jeannie. Yep.
Yes. So like those kinds of things where just kind of that setup, or the dental plan, Lisa needs braces stuff. It's all kind of there. But yeah, I would say like, everybody's in that kind of proto stage of being the character they're going to be. Like Lisa has a long monologue to Aunt Selma about
Denigrating
Homer. And it's just like very much, it's like really rough compared to what Lisa would do in the later seasons. But it establishes already, this is like a smart kid. She's very well aware of what's going on around her. And Bart's just a whirlwind of chaos, and Maggie has just started walking, and that's basically what Maggie does.
Yeah, I do like to, because this is an important aspect, I think, to Bart's character in future episodes as well, and that is him fucking Christmas this time was done with the intent of getting a tattoo that he thought Marge would like. And there are moments in future
Sick
episodes
moth tattoo.
Yeah, seriously, sick moth. But yeah, there are moments in future episodes too, I think, where he does have kind of the same inclination. It's not always about, like in the other two episodes, it was more selfish in terms of the ways that he acted. But I mean, even then, like there's the sweetness that comes out later when he recognizes and has remorse for what he did. And so I do like that, like his intent was really thinking that Marge was going to think it was awesome. And that she was going to just think it was so sweet that he got a mother tattoo for her.
One mother, please.
Are you 21? Get in the chair.
That whole thought process, it like does recur. And I thought it was interesting because when I initially picked these 3 episodes, I was more just like, what takes place during like Christmas? Like, what is that? I did not anticipate that it would be kind of a narrative loop of Bart fucking things up. But it's also interesting how like, as you move through the episodes, you can tell that the showrunner is changing and whoever is behind the narrative is kind of changing because the emotional connection and the relationship that's emphasized changes. Like in this one, it's more of a Bart and Homer story. And it's both of them sort of like Bart fucking up, Homer trying to keep a secret, and Bart helping him in that moment. And you see their bond. But it's all, the impetus is all Bart thinking that Marge would really love this gift. And then in season 7, Marge Be Not Proud, it's way more about Bart and Marge's relationship and like Marge coddling him and him maybe feeling like he wants to be a bit more grown up and like grow out of the things that she's been doing. That combined with him wanting the stand-in for Mortal Kombat known as Bone Storm.
Bone Storm.
And that was the one thing that viscerally popped out from that episode was Santa Claus bursting through a wall with a rocket launcher and shooting a cartridge into a game console. Just great. But yeah, all the other characters, who else do we see in this first episode? It's like we see Mo and he has black hair.
Yeah.
We see
Pink
Barney.
apron. We see Barney.
But he's blonde.
Yeah, he's blonde at that point.
I love the bit with Barney when they're at Moe's and Barney tells Homer that he's working as a mall Santa and Homer's like, "Oh, do you think I could do that?" And he goes, "I don't know, they're pretty selective."
And he belches.
Yeah, just drunk off his ass.
Immediately followed by that scene with the guy that's like, "Do you like kids?" And Homer's like, "What, all the time? Are you nuts?" Yeah.
There's also Ralph Wiggum with like a deep voice.
Ralph Wiggum with a deep voice and a Ralph Wiggum who is competent.
Yeah.
Who seems to know a lot more about what's going on.
Yeah, they definitely haven't figured out all the characters yet at this point. You know, Homer's voice didn't really get to where it is now until like season 3 or 4. And it's a deeper thing at this point. He still sounds dumb, but he doesn't sound as dumb as he does kind of later on in the show. But a lot of the, like, you know, Marge is Marge, Lisa is Lisa. You know, a lot of the stuff is fully formed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Grandpa and Selma and Patty are kind of the way they are. One
Burns.
thing, yeah, Mr. Burns is obviously very clearly just they had the idea for that character. One thing I will talk about with this first episode is that while I know the animation has significantly improved over the years, I still think for television-based animation compared to some of the crap you see for kids animated shows,
Yeah.
this is pretty damn high quality,
Yeah.
even for its time. Like, you can tell that there's a lot of TLC that Matt Groening and his team of animators put into every aspect of the episodes. With what they could, and then you can kind of start to see their animation craft grow throughout the next few seasons. So
It's always interesting to compare like this and is it the Babysitter Bandit episode? Is that a prototype or like there was a Babysitter Bandit segment about like a babysitter who comes over and she's actually stealing from the Simpsons, and I can't remember if it came before the series or happens in the middle of it. But they had tried to do like smooth animation for that one, and it becomes very uncanny very fast because the faces contort in a way that feels like more Ren and Stimpy, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then they kind of reeled that back and did a more simplistic approach here. And even this, there's expressions on the characters' faces that I have not seen since, like in other seasons. It's like they cleaned that up. They have a lot more, I guess, reliable techniques that they want to apply to it. But it's always interesting to see how rough that was and how it just kind of escalates and becomes something different as the seasons go on.
One of the other gags that I really like in the show, it's stupid, but it gets me every time, is when Marge is like, turn away so I can pull out the Christmas money, and everybody hides their eyes, and she just pulls this giant pickle jar out of her hair that has like a bunch of cash and coins in it, and just like apparently just carries it around there all year, and Homer is so inattentive that he has not noticed.
That's that other level of like how absurd it is. I mean, Marge's hair from the get-go is massive, big cactus, and watching her do that and use it. I can't remember if she continues to do that in any other episodes or if it's just like season 1 stuff. But I feel like there are things that I know she gets caught in her hair, and like they will occasionally come back and do a gag with it, which is just nice to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this episode in particular, I found myself like smiling a lot more through it. Not like a whole lot of laughter as we talked about. But towards the end, it still had that kind of sweetness to it when I feel like it again, because it runs in like a 20-minute slot, it can't be too long, but it also wraps up really fucking fast.
Yeah.
Like Homer, they get Santa's little helper at the racetrack. Immediately after losing, the guy's like, get out of here. You lost too many races. And he just jumps into Homer's hands and he's like, all right, I guess we're taking the dog home. And the moment that they show up, Homer's about to have his big confession and the dog just comes out. And everybody's like, oh, fuck it. It's a dog. And then it ends. It just like ends.
Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, this is the best Christmas ever.
Yeah. And it's like heartwarming enough, but
I think it's really interesting what this episode is trying to do, because yes, it's trying to establish The Simpsons as a very different kind of sitcom that's more grounded, that is about working class families, but it's also trying to like separate itself from other Christmas episodes of TV shows. And Christmas episodes are always like, oh, everything's wonderful and things look bad, but then a miracle happens and we're all good. And Bart says during the episode toward the end, he says, if TV has taught me anything, it's that miracles always happen to poor kids at Christmas. It happened to Tiny Tim. It happened to Charlie Brown. It happened to the Smurfs. And it's going to happen to us. And then, they put all their $13 on Santa's Little Helper at 99 to 1 odds, and he gets crushed and he doesn't even finish the race. And Bart, just staring out at the track, says, it doesn't seem possible, but I guess TV has betrayed me. It's like pulling the rug out from under you and thinking, we're not going to do the thing that everyone else does with our Christmas episodes. We're going to make this a darker and a more realistic type of thing. And, the only reason, and this family does kind of get a miracle because like Homer needed to bring something back to the family, but it's not what the family expected. It's not necessarily what they wanted, but it's what they got. And they have to be able to be happy with that.
I love that you bring that up because when I was taking the television class in college, one of the case studies we kind of did was the difference between I Love Lucy and The Honeymooners. And the specific episodes they did were episodes where in both shows characters went on game shows. And I Love Lucy ended with her going on this game show and magically coming up with the answer for a question that won her the prize at the end, even though she had no context, no knowledge of it, whatever. But then the Honeymooners had it to where the character had been listening to a song being played on the piano by his friend and just dismissing it the whole time. Like, I need to just to study all this other music because they're going to ask me about music. And then when he gets to the game show, the song they ask him about is the one he was playing the entire time. And it just ends with him losing and everything. And at the time, my professor was like, okay, let's talk about the difference between these two and why the Honeymooners hit so much harder. And the point there was like, this is more grounded in reality. And while the show was 90% a comedy, leaving with one of those episodes where you have that moment of seriousness, loss, and just anything else that comes with it is really, really critical. And I think a lot of sitcoms, one of the biggest issues is they're like, well, we're here to be funny. And so every episode is going to have to just have people in stitches constantly. And I think the better sitcoms like The Simpsons, All in the Family, Futurama, and South Park, like the things that they tend to do, and even, you got me into Kevin Can Fuck Himself recently.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that they do is they build the expectation that this is going to be funny. And like you said, Dixon, they pull the rug out from under you and hit you with a dose of reality. And it makes that whole episode and your connection with those characters that much stronger for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, after a while, otherwise they become like Marvelized. They become the superheroes who always, even if they lose at the end of an episode, they have to have a part 2 where they win back everything or something happens that like completely makes that go away. Or if you're fucking Family Ties I think it was Family Ties with Michael J. Fox. There's like an episode where Tom Hanks comes on and he's a fucking raging alcoholic who just like ruins everything and fucks up a job interview and does all this other shit while drinking. And like he slaps Michael J. Fox. And then at the end of it, he's like, I'll get help. I promise I'll get help. And then they immediately just like, he never shows up ever again. And he just fucking supposedly goes to a rehab clinic, but we don't fucking know. And we'll never see that because it's fine.
Where he was euthanized.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, he went to a Tom Hanks farm upstate.
Thank God. About fucking time.
Now he can frolic with all of the other Colonel impersonators.
But like you need that dose of reality in comedies to provide any sort of stakes or reality at all, right? Especially in a long-running show like that, where you have to feel invested in the characters. And in a sitcom that doesn't provide that, it's just hard for me to get invested and to actually care what's going on. If it's a 90-minute movie and it's a comedy, that's fine. I can get through that. And like, oh yeah, that was a good time. And like, but if it's something I'm going to be asked to come back to every week, then I need to feel like I actually care about these people and that they might actually have to deal with consequences for their shitheadery.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of shitheadery, this is immediately off the rails for this, but I did watch a Christmas movie recently called Coming Home for Christmas with Jonathan Taylor Thomas. It was a Disney film.
I remember my sister loved that when I was a kid, and I remember watching it like once and being like, why the fuck would you ever watch this? And
That's
that was like child me
yeah.
that just didn't like girl movies, but I imagine it's not good.
It's not good. It's Jessica Biel and Jonathan Taylor Thomas are like dating, and Gary Cole's in it. I fucking love Gary Cole. He plays his father, who Jonathan Taylor Thomas is a piece of shit who tries to talk himself out of anything or talk other people out of anything. And he's like running fucking hustles constantly. And Gary Cole is like, I just want to see you home for Christmas, son. Like, that's all. I'll give you the Porsche if you come home. And he like immediately decides that he's going to go home for the Porsche. So it's one of those, like, you're a greedy bastard. And he gets like jumped by some guys and left in the desert in a Santa outfit. And as one does, you just hitchhike your way across America after that and learn your lessons. But the entire time, the motherfucker keeps lying like a sociopath because the movie needs comedy to happen. So they like the first person he runs into, he doesn't tell them I was abducted and dumped in the desert. He just goes, my dad has surgery and I just need to get home. I'm so sorry. And he just starts crying.
It seems like an unnecessary lie.
Yeah, and he keeps doing that the whole movie. I was like, why? And the only time that he ever has a conscience vaguely is when like a cab driver's like, oh, you want to run for charity and you want $1,000. What are you going to do with it? And he's like, I'm going to buy a plane ticket. And the guy's like, well, usually the mayor wins that. And he buys turkeys for everybody. And Jonathan Taylor Thomas goes, all right, turn the cab around. And he gives the money to the mayor. He doesn't donate anything. He doesn't do anything else with it. He just lets the mayor have it, fucking leaves. But yeah, like that is a 90-minute version of like what television does, where if it's really off, if it's something where the characters are never going to change and it's going to be this normal at the end, you can feel when it's trying to adhere to a structure, but the characters aren't experiencing the change they probably should. Whereas in like The Simpsons, even though each episode is kind of different and like the characters maybe reset between things, they still have memories of other episodes happening and they'll talk about it, especially during clip shows. You still get this sense that there is heart and that they can't fuck up that same way again. Like they can change after, even if they never really mention it. Like Homer will always be dumb. Well, now in the newer seasons, he's kind of fucking mean, and I don't know what that shit's about. But yeah, he'll be dumb, but he'll be dumb in a different way, and he'll remain the same kind of sweet dad he's trying to be. Like he wants to help Lisa through some of her experiences, but he doesn't know how, and he'll try these different things every so often. But yeah, anyways, I just wanted to talk about how terrible that fucking movie was compared to this 20-minute episode of The Simpsons.
That was
Sounds like you would recommend it, John.
It's our mini recommend or refute jammed in the middle of the episode.
Yeah, I think that this was something too that I've been thinking a lot about, is that there are certain television shows, they're farther and fewer between now because everything has become like this big drama that, you know, is serialized and you have to kind of run whatever the course is, which is great because we've got some really high quality television nowadays. But back in the 90s, I feel like it wasn't always that way. You know, like the medium itself provides you with this really cool way to serialize stories, characters, and trust that the audience that is tuning in weekly is going to remember, okay, Homer is this way, so I can expect him to act this way. And even if he doesn't necessarily always have memory of doing something dumb in the past, like when he acts in a dumb way, you're like, oh, that's so Homer. Like I can envision him acting that way. And again, I think that that's where some of the show's heart comes from too, is even though the characters act in these certain ways, they're very human ways. And so when they have those moments of humanity at the end of the episode, you know, Homer going to the racetrack, both being irresponsible and betting his $13 on a dog, which basically it's like, go bury your $13 in a hole in the ground and it will probably suit you better than this. But he's doing it because he's so desperate to win something for his family, and he just needs that win. And even though he loses it, it turning into them acquiring a dog is, you know, the part of the episode where he's like, well, of course he's going to adopt the dog. He's not going to just let the dog go because at his very core, he has this sweet, loving heart where he will do pretty much anything for his family.
It also shows you this like unbridled optimism he gets from being kind of as dumb as he is, but also Homer just wants to believe that something would work out in his favor. Like he begs Bart. Bart's a cynic, and Bart was like, come on, Dad, that's like just a coincidence that Santa's little helper was subbed in. Bart is correct. But Homer's like, just come on, believe in it for your old man. Like, do it. It's such a heartfelt plea from him to just, you know, have some spirit, some cheer, and try. But yeah, that's interesting to kind of think a little bit more on, especially considering he kind of changes. I mean, he definitely changes as we go through the later seasons, but he's not really in the second episode that we're talking about, which is Marge Be Not Proud. Obviously, I've said that like Marge and Bart, that's like their show. They have the relationship that's on display, and Lisa, Maggie, and Homer play sort of second to that. Homer's really there for like punchlines for a lot of that episode. What is it? He's going through the list of how he's going to punish Bart. And he's like, first of all, he's grounded. And second of all, it's this thing. And third of all, it's this thing. And then like, no stealing for 3 months is like his last requirement. And you think that he's writing it all on a list, but he's like just doodling on a fucking robot on paper, throwing something away. But you should probably set some context for that episode. So Marge Be Not Proud is the one where Bart hears about this rad new game called Bone Storm.
Bone Storm.
Buy me Bone Storm or go to hell.
Young man, in this house we use a little word called please.
And so Bart, he tries every trick in the book to get a copy of Bone Storm. He wants to borrow it from his friend Millhouse, or should I say Thrill House, or Thrillho, as it's put on screen.
I love those old video games where it's like you only had like 7 characters to put in your name. So you're just, if your name is longer than that, you're just fucked.
Yep.
I just put ass every time. It always works out.
That works. Ass, poop. Those are the classics.
And so he goes to like the Try and Save, which is a store we never go back to. I don't know where that is. I have no idea. And
at some point later in The Simpsons, they have a Sprawl Mart, like in later seasons, and I think like this was their kind of initial crack at like a chain store.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they have like. Well, we didn't even talk about Homer going to the dollar store in the first episode, which is their other crack at like things happening in that.
Pantyhose, affordable and alluring.
But yeah, Bart gets to Try and Save, and he just has this plan. He'll go alone, and he had like begged Marge to give him a copy of Bone Storm. He had formally asked her, "Buy me Bone Storm or go to hell," and she said, "No, you can wait." And he just decides, I'll take matters in my own hands. He goes to Try and Save, and he does the thing that I did when I was a kid, and I thought it would work. I wonder if y'all had a similar thought process as children, where if you just really wanted something and you looked sad enough, somebody would maybe get it for you.
That thought never crossed my mind as a child. Did that work for you, John?
Nope, it never did.
I do distinctly recall a couple of times, too, our parents buying us something in a store and there being a kid standing next to something else who would ask if they would buy them something too.
Yeah.
That did not work out
See,
well.
that's the strategy.
Yep.
Is you just try to find somebody who has money and then you ask them if they can use the money to get you stuff.
Start them in capitalism when they're young.
Yeah. But yeah, Bart's like, maybe if I just look sad and look at it really longingly, somebody will come around. And nobody does, but there's like a rich kid that comes. His mom's like, which one is it? And he's like, it's Bone Storm, Mom. I already have all the other ones.
Don't you have it already?
Yeah.
Shut up, Mom.
Yeah. It's like,
stupid idiot.
Get 2 copies. I don't want to share with my sister.
I wrote down some of the names of the other video games that were in that store.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, there's Lee Carvalho's Putting Challenge.
Yes.
But then we have Swim Meet, Canasta Master, Operation Rescue, A Streetcar Named Death, Electric Biathlon, Angus Podgorny's Caper Toss.
Amazing.
And the cap of them all, Save Hitler's Brain.
What the fuck? Oh my God. I love those visual gags.
Yeah.
That's just great.
And they just scan past them real quick. And I was like, I got to pause this. I got to write these down.
They can just pack stuff in when they want to.
Yeah.
That's great.
And that, again, is another benefit of it being an animated show, is that they can really put that kind of TLC into the frames of animation and add in those jokes, knowing full well that very few people are probably going to notice them. And you don't have to spend as much money on props because it's all animated. So
Yeah, I feel like you have to do a much harder tell if you were to do it in live action in like a sitcom or something. You have to make sure that the camera's frame rate is right when it's panning across something, or really end up lingering on it and just putting it right in the front of the audience's face. It's not as funny.
Yep.
But here you can pause a lot of the Simpsons and find something that's hilarious in there.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of great sign humor in The Simpsons, and like, the church sign that says something different every week and stuff like that. But the game that I've been thinking about the most since I watched that episode is not Save Hitler's Brain or any of the other hilariously titled ones. It's Swim Meet, because I was like, do you just like push A as fast as you can? Is that how that game goes? You just like swim in a line back and forth. Like, that just sounds like the most boring fucking game.
I wager it's on the Waterworld side, where you just talk with your partners before the swim meet actually happens.
Yeah.
Make your decisions. It's like the My Dinner with Andre game as well. Tell me more. Oh, man. But yeah, anytime there's an arcade or a movie theater, anything in The Simpsons, I got to pause. I got to see exactly what they're showing.
Well, yeah, I mean, because even the Bone Storm commercial has Liu Kang fighting a tank, and the kids are just completely and totally bored by that particular game.
Right, yeah.
Oh, man. Amazing.
Another really fun gag in this episode in particular, when Bart is exhausting all of his options leading up to him actually shoplifting the game, is when he goes to Milhouse's and Milhouse yells that Bart is swearing.
Yes. Yeah.
And
when he
then
uses any excuse to get Bart out.
And as he is being escorted out, he's actively swearing at Milhouse's mom. He's like, what the hell? Oh, damn it. So it's like, if he wasn't before, he's now adding credibility to Milhouse's claim.
I love that he sets that up because later Milhouse says that he's smoking.
Yes.
Which is an even funnier double down on that. But I love that gag that like has been seared into my mind since I saw the episode even before we just watched it. Like Milhouse's mom walking him down the stairs and trying to talk while he's talking. It has this hilarious rhythm to it. It also has a subversion to it as well, because it's set up initially to just get Bart out of the house. But once he goes and he's sitting there with the open case after Jeremy or whoever the fuck the kid is comes and gets this game, just sitting there contemplating if he should steal the game. And then Mario comes down and starts talking to him and Luigi joins. And he's like, come on, like the store wants you to do it. And that was my Chris Pratt as Mario, by the way. It was, I think, flawlessly executed.
Yeah. There's also Jimbo and Nelson walk by, and Jimbo's got a football stuffed under his beanie.
and Nelson's got a vest under his vest.
The same vest that he always wears under his normal vest with a price tag on it.
Oh my God.
So
That's the easiest way to get away with it. But yeah, I love that Donkey Kong becomes the final voice of reason who comes down and is just like, well, you could think about it, Bart. The store wants you to do it. Obviously. Him taking that and getting out and meeting Detective. He's a detective, first of all. He's the department store
I imagine
detective.
he's a retired detective, maybe, that still calls himself a detective. Either that or he is just incredibly cocky and thinks he's the shit and just calls himself detective when he's a security guard.
Yeah, one of those self-aggrandizing things.
I know.
Bart gets caught violating the 11th commandment, as the detective says later.
Thou shalt not steal is in the commandments. Like, usually people like the 11th commandment. Usually people like add something that's not in the 10 commandments, but thou shalt not steal is in there. It's the 8th, I think. I don't know. Which one?
I'm pretty sure it's 4.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's either.
Maybe kill
I'm
comes
pretty
first.
sure it's 8. Yeah, but anyway, it's one of them.
Well, yeah, because.
Well, whatever. It's in front of the courthouse.
No,
we can all go look.
Yeah, the final 3 are the thou shalt not covet ones. Neighbor's wife, and all that.
The
shit.
lower priority.
Yeah, but kill, steal, and all that I think are in the middle. They're that sweet spot of the commandment sandwich.
Thou shalt not kill people. Thou shalt not steal lives.
Yeah.
As we all know from Moral Oral, the 11th commandment is thou shalt not spit on life or God's great gift. It's some shit like that. One of them is thou shalt not bastardize the American language, and that's what I remember the most.
I believe the true 11th commandment is thy anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hon.
From the book of Sir Mix-a-Lot. One of the noblest knights to ever ride. Bart gets caught, and we get that really cool sequence where even before this, I think there's a lot more style that's being put to use in The Simpsons. You can tell that they have more budget to produce the show with, including doing point of view shots. Like even before Bart goes and steals the cartridge, there is a sequence in which Marge is tucking him in. It's really establishing that Marge is infantilizing him, and she starts to talk to him about how she's not lame, and he's like, you know what, like even admitting that you're lame makes you lame, Mom, and it's just not cool. And she starts starts quoting Forrest Gump, like life's like a box of chocolates, blah blah blah, and he puts a trash can on his head, and we get the first person perspective of the trash can and the banging of a stick against it, and we get to even see him like lift it up and see if she's still talking and pull it back down, and it's just like a magnificent shot that took a lot of thought, I would say, because you could have easily just shown them camera corner of the room kind of thing. But I it was something that I noticed that I was like, I think like later we see a lot of that, especially like after season 4, we probably see a lot more like point of view stuff when they really start to pick up and put more effort into some of the gags they do. But I was just like, oh, that's cool. That's something that I don't normally notice. And in this one, it just stood out. But yeah, like we even get like other perspectives of like the CCTV sort of like view from What is the detective dude's name even? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I keep thinking it's Officer Steve Grabowski, but that's from the 9/11 or not the 9/11. Sorry, that's from the Twin Towers episode of New York, Homer versus New York.
Oh.
Obviously, I called it the 9/11 episode as a faux pas, but
wow, John, wow.
My bad. It was canceled, or it was never shown again after 9/11 happened. So I think about it.
It's a good episode.
It is a good episode. Crab collage, crab juice, and Mountain Dew. What would your choice be?
I like the cold open of this episode is Krusty Christmas special. And
Oh, that's right.
I wrote down the quote. There's like an advertisement at the start that says, "It's a crusty kind of Christmas, brought to you by ILG, selling your body's chemicals after you die, and by Little Sweethearts Cupcakes, a subsidiary of ILG."
Those good quick hits.
So good.
That gag, and then like whenever Bart is in the detective's security lounge, we get a Troy McClure video.
Oh, I also
which
wrote
is
that
just
down.
Delightful. Yeah, please regale us.
Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You might remember me from such public service videos as Designated Drivers, The Life-Saving Nerds, and Phony Tornado Alarms, Reduce Readiness. I like how they don't even bother showing the video. They just like did that bit, and then the security guard's like, fuck it, like whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, you know enough.
Don Brodka is the security
John
guard.
Brodka.
Yeah.
Yep.
Broadcast. Okay, yeah.
Yep, I know.
I loved his he makes the phone call immediately after, calls Bart's parents, and that whole gag of
Yep.
having a conversation and being like, they went home. left a message on
I
the
left
machine.
a message on the machine, which also leads to a great gag as well of Bart racing home and then Homer racing home to get Maggie there as well.
Gotta change Maggie. And then Bart puts in some sort of like awful Christmas tape into the answering machine.
Yes, so Camp Granada is an actual song that I remember listening to as a kid from the, I want to say 60s or 70s. But yeah. And so like, and then Homer asking Marge if Lisa's at Camp Granada.
I love Homer being like, I don't remember us having a message before we left.
Yeah.
And you expect it to be the message from the guy at the Try and Save, and then it's playing that song.
It's so good. And then Bart turns around and it really nails, like puts the nail in the coffin for that song where he's like, now to put it where nobody will ever listen to it. Right into the cassette case. But yeah, you can already tell, like, we're laughing thinking about it. This is like, we're 7 seasons into this show. It's fucking cooking at that point.
Yeah.
And the gags are just going one by one. And this is kind of where I noticed that there was like a shift in how what the heart of the show is and how it focuses on the characters. Because this is, I would say that in the first episode, in the first season, even Matt Groening is like the bona fide showrunner. He's making the choices on like what stories they're going to tell. And there's a bunch of other producers on board and obviously writer's room. But then when you get to like season 7, you get to like the Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein production sort of piece of it. And they, of course, Dixon, they went off and made Mission Hill because they were kind of frustrated that The Simpsons didn't cover college age kids and talking about their lives. But they're like responsible for the Van Houten splitting up. They are responsible for this episode. There's a lot in their direction of trying to really test on like the fences of how much they could do with the characters and what emotional traumas they could put them through. And
are they responsible for the Flanders splitting up?
I don't think they are responsible for the Flanders splitting up. That
was a dark joke.
I think the budget was responsible for the Flanders splitting up. Here in this one, after there's that the sequence in which the moment that Bart gets caught and the messages are there, we get the detective is like, don't come back to the store, like no matter what, which is a weird thing to put on somebody to be like, you stole once, and if you ever come back, I'm going to fuck up your shit, kid.
Also, like Bart is pretty good at doing the shoplifting. Like there's nobody around. He's looking around. He slips in his pocket. It's a small thing. He makes it out of the store. Like he's, darting his eyes around. But like, it's like Jimbo has a football under his beanie.
Yeah,
like
they make it
like
out.
he gets out all the time with no problem. He steals whatever he wants. So like this detective, acts like he's such a hard ass and will catch anybody that comes in there. But like.
He only catches one kind.
Yep.
Yeah.
So just a couple of like tangents here too on this, because I worked at Academy Sports and Outdoors when I was in high school.
Did you
and
see
then
anyone
college.
put a football under their beanie?
I did not, but here is the best fucking thing. So they had on hand a VHS tape that was supposed to be shoplifting training, like to teach you how to catch people.
Okay.
But it actually showed you very useful tips on how to shoplift.
Like the
one
irony of
best
arming
ones
people with that.
being like this woman comes in with a wrapped box that has the bottom cut out and slips it over something and then just like walks out with this wrapped box. But one of the things that was like very, very like prominent in the whole training video was the second a person steps out the store, you don't actively follow them and accuse them, because if they at any point in time while they were in the store set the item back down and you falsely accuse them, you basically can fuck your store and they can file a lawsuit for wrongful like accusation or whatever. I forget if it's like slander or whatever the clause is, but like there's a whole big piece on that where when I was watching this episode, I was like, oh man, if he had been wrong or Bart had actually like actively put it back, his store would have been fucked. But of course, obviously for television, you're going to do what you need to do to drive the plot in that point.
Also, is Bart's under no obligation to reveal anything under his person once he's outside of the store.
Exactly.
Premises. So, you know,
and the
he's not a
detective,
lawyer, but
Bart doesn't know that he's 10.
yeah,
exactly. The detective placing his hand on him, like any number of things.
The authority.
The
pure authority of it. Yeah, when I worked at GameStop, they didn't show us a video about that. They just said, if anybody steals anything, just like don't tackle them.
Yep.
Like don't try to like pursue. And they knew we all played NFL Blitz. They knew what we were about.
Just play good NBA defense. Give them some space and go side to side. Keep your hands up.
That's right.
Do not reach forward. We'll call a foul.
That's right. They get the ref involved. But yeah, like they immediately set up that stakes of like Marge is like, well, we need to have a nice family photo. We need to have something. We get a lovely montage of all the previous family photos and Homer being very perplexed about when he said I stink, which it's hilarious to me that he reads a picture and thinks that that's actually what he said. Again, more evidence that Homer is getting dumber as the seasons progress.
It's not a question, Professor.
I'm just reminded real quick. I'll probably cut this, but that one when Homer finds Henry Kissinger's glasses. By the way, Henry Kissinger, fucking rotten hell, you piece of shit.
Oh, I'm so glad he's dead.
No one must know who dropped them
damn
in the toilet.
time.
Not I, the man who drafted the Paris Peace Accords.
And he puts his glasses on and he recites the formula.
Yes. The square root of any side of an isosceles triangle is equal to the sum of the squares of the remaining sides. That's a right triangle, you idiot.
Just immediately, even glasses can't make him smart.
While we're on that episode, I also love that episode later has Henry Kissinger being hospitalized for running into a wall.
If only life had imitated art sooner.
He looks to be 100 fucking years old, man.
God,
Something not right about that.
Dick Cheney's on his like sixth heart now, or
the
something.
hate just keeps you going. You know?
That's right.
Let the hate flow through you.
Shouldn't have stocked up on toilet paper during the pandemic. It was hate. You should have stocked up on.
Yeah.
I guess some people did
We were
because
looking
January
for hate.
6th happened. So.
Yes. God damn it.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, back on the rails here. We get that lovely montage of all those photos, and Marge is like, we're going back to the try and save, and Bart is just immediately paranoid, off put, trying to like, he comes down in a bunch of like face putty, has like his nose and chin and his glasses. Okay, I just didn't get the gag visually. Is he Clinton? Is there something else going on? There's a reference because he just goes, I don't have to listen to these allegations. And it seems very pointed to be something that would be dated to that time. And I just have no idea what it is.
I don't know. The nose, maybe Nixon.
Could be, yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, just one of those things where I was like, that's the only joke I picked up on that I was like, that feels dated. I don't know why.
By the way, I do think it was funny in the first episode where Homer is taking Santa classes and he's having to recite the reindeer and he's like Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Nixon.
Also, when the guy's like, you're not even the real Santa, are you? And he's like, why are you little? And almost punches him. And the guy's like, Mr. Simpson, you're supposed to say these things. Like, oh, I knew that one too. His impulse got the better of him.
Yeah, and that's actually a good setup too to like a running gag that they do anyway with Homer. Like Homer in a class of any kind is almost immediate gold. Like if you go to the parenting class, in the later episode, the clown college episodes, like all of that is just gold.
The one
Homer.
where he teaches a class about having a happy marriage.
Yep. While who is it teaching the class about eating an orange? Is it Hans Moleman?
Yeah, Hans Moleman.
Eating an orange is like a successful marriage. Just eat the damn orange.
And Lenny's teaching a class on spitting.
And Mo teaches some kind of dance talk or something.
Yeah, it's breakdancing.
Breakdance battling. He's like, say one guy is dissing your fly girl. You just give him one of these.
Oh, man.
So many fucking great jokes.
But yeah. Anyway, back to Marge being not proud.
Yeah. We get to go back to the try and save, which there is, again, like I'm doubling back as I talk more about it. I remember more of the gags, like even the detective taking Bart to his office.
Catfish.
There's that Santa that's just like, ho, ho, little boy, here's a present. He's like, not a present for him. And he's like, oh, I see. Like immediately gets fucking mad. It's just like code.
I love to when they're taking the picture and Bart is looking around nervous for the security guard the whole time, and you see him like walking down some of the other halls as they're walking over to the picture area, and Bart's like, can we please just take the damn picture? Like, let's go ahead and get this thing done. And you think they're in the clear, and right as they snap the photo, you see the security guard's arm reach in and yank Bart by the collar, and it looks just like all of the other Christmas photos that we've seen in that earlier montage, where like Bart is being yanked out of the picture by some angry authority figure.
Yeah. That whole sequence too built like a really good amount of tension. It just always sticks with me, like how much they put into here's where the security guard is. He's getting closer. Like Bart's looking now. Maggie's having a meltdown, and the fucking photographer who's like, all right, it's time to meet Mr. Funny Voice. And he starts doing the helium.
Oh, it's just regular air.
Realizes it's regular air. He just dies inside a little bit when he recognizes that. Just great. But yeah, like that moment and then cutting to Marge sticking up for Bart and being like, there's no way that he would do it. The constant subversion happening, like beat over beat. It's Bart getting pulled by the neck and then Marge denying it and Bart being like, look, Mom, I don't want you to see this when he puts the tape on. And then we just pull out to reveal the giant wall of fucking other TVs hooked up to that VCR.
Yep.
Oh man. Just
I love it.
constantly
What
punching
would you say the security guard's name was? Brodka?
Yeah,
Don
Brodka.
Brodka?
Don
Brodka.
Don Brodka, played by Lawrence Tierney.
He's like, oh, sure, now he's just a little boy stealing little toys, but someday he'll be a grown man stealing stadiums and quarries.
Just those great layered jokes about scale and other shit. Oh man, fucking fun wordplay.
I hate it when my quarry gets stolen.
It's just the worst.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I thought only Batman villains could steal stadiums, but who knows? On the wrong path, I guess any kid could do it someday.
Yep. And here we see too, like the course correction that the family chooses to adopt for Bart is an overcorrection comparatively. Like we see this kind of gag happen again and again with Bart. Like thinking back to the Itchy and Scratchy movie episode as well. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, where basically he's denied the right to see the movie ever. Until he becomes Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which, you know, nowadays it's like, well, why would you want your kid to be that? Anyway.
Because you free shit, obviously.
Obviously.
Hell yeah.
But, you know, Marge, initially, like, it seems like the punishment fits the crime to a degree, although from a parent perspective, I disagree. But, like, you know, she's like choosing to not infantilize him as much anymore. So the sleepy train's not coming through the station anymore. But then like they really like overcorrect to kind of being dicks to Bart, like, you know, like basically building snowmen and then leaving snow under the fucking car for him to dig out to try and make his.
Yeah.
Like they really ostracize him in a way that I don't think is fully fair. But again, it goes to like the grounded in reality. Like at the time in the 90s, that was a perfectly acceptable way to discipline a child that you felt had done something wrong to your family. If you're not going to beat the shit out of them, then you're going to basically
at least
ostracize
do
them.
that.
Yeah.
But I think too, some of that is Marge legitimately like being depressed and not knowing how to deal with it.
Yep.
Right. Some of it I don't think is active punishment of Bart. It's her like being very upset with her own abilities as a mother and thinking like, shit, I don't know my kid the way I thought I did. Everything I've taught him hasn't worked. Like it's her having kind of a parental crisis.
Yep.
And I think that's a really interesting, kind of look into Marge as a character that, I feel like oftentimes Marge ends up being kind of in the background of the family, but a lot of times the episodes where Marge takes more of center stage in the episode is like those episodes have more heart and more family dynamics than I think a typical Simpsons episode tends to.
Yeah. And I think I will say from the perspective of a parent, like there is something to be said. And this is one of the reasons why I love shows like this, is like, especially with your oldest kid, you're figuring everything out for the first time. So the kid is learning everything, but you are learning everything as a parent. Like you don't necessarily know how to discipline them. You don't know how to handle whatever situation they bring to you at that point because you're like, I have nothing to go off of. And you talk to a previous generation, it's like, we don't do anything the way you do it because like there's all this research that now says don't fucking do that. So I completely agree with you, Dixon. And like, I think part of like her response is really like this crisis as a parent. Like, what the fuck do I do now? Like, I have no idea. I'm not equipped. I've never dealt with this before. And I don't know how to deal with this child moving forward because I'm not equipped to it. I'm learning all of it as I go. So
Yeah.
There's so many episodes where the visualization of Bart in the future, beyond being a Supreme Court justice, is it just him having ruined his life.
Being like a pothead. That
being
really
a pothead or being a male stripper.
I wash myself with a rag on a stick.
Well, that was his own personal goal, though. That was a little bit
I'm going to be a lardo like dad.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's one of those things where here we don't get to see that projection, but we do get to see Marge probably thinking about it pretty intently when they get home. And Bart's like, is there anything I can do to make it up? And she's like, I don't know. Why don't you go to bed? Like, she's just staring off into the distance.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a sobering moment because up until then, it's been a lot of goofy shit happening. And even with the reveal of Bart shoplifting, there's a gag that like does that. But like immediately after, it's almost like right after the commercial break, there's sort of this, oh, fuck. How is this going to come together? What's going to happen? Yeah. And I think that it does a good job. The episode does a good job for being as short as it is, really cramming in these segments of the overcorrection to establish that Marge would have suspicion if Bart ever did anything else. She's like, while she's trying to be hands off, she's also watching him constantly to make sure that he doesn't do anything.
Yep.
I really loved seeing Bart get fed up. There's that subversion at the end of him just being like, I'll show them what the black sheep of the family can do. And going to get his photo taken. And that was like the big reveal of him trying to hide something from her for Christmas. That whole buildup, I felt it made sense. It didn't feel rushed. The resolution, when they put the picture up, I was like, okay, cool. This is where I would want to be. Like I was talking about the first episode earlier, it feels like the first episode, Homer comes home, he's trying to do a confession, heartfelt. That would probably breathe a little bit longer if it was to actually sit, but instead the dog comes in and saves Christmas and everything's fine. And here, because it's so focused on Marge and Bart's dynamic, you get that moment of her being like, show me what you have. Like, I want to see it. I want to know. And having the emotional response of, oh, okay, well, like she immediately switches back to like, okay, you do care. Like you do want me to mother you. I will do this for you, like kissing him all over and everything. And it's sweet. It's so warm and fuzzy and it feels nice, but they really let you sit in that valley for quite a while before that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think the power in this episode is one, Marge basically trying to force Bart to act like an adult. for the middle half of the episode, where she really is like, you can make your own hot chocolate, you can build your own snowman. I thought that you wouldn't want to do this, like not having the tuck-in time. And then him openly embracing that to basically show her, like, there's no explanation on where the money actually came from that he used, because previously he only had 99 cents for Bone Storm.
Yeah.
But he somehow got the money he needed to, actually purchase this photo frame, purchase the photo itself, and do the session, and then provide that to her. And I think that what I love about this episode, and it comes back to what Dixon was saying about the first episode too, is like how the show subverts your expectations. Like Homer goes to the track, tries to bet on a dog, doesn't win, but brings home a dog, and it indirectly saves Christmas. Here, you as the audience, from everything you've seen about Bart, are expecting him to basically take the easy path forward, whatever that might be. You don't know what he's going to go do, but you're expecting it's probably going to be more bad than good. And then he subverts your expectations, does the right thing, wins back Marge's affections and everything. And then you're expecting, okay, now that he's done that, he's going to get Bone Storm.
Yes.
Marge actively has been listening to him. She got him Bone Storm. And instead...
Yes.
I love that bit because it's such a mom thing to do, right? To like not understand the exact thing that your kid wants. And she's like, I asked the store clerk which one the ones all the boys want. And he opens it up, it's Lee Carvalho's putting challenge. And Bart, like, instead of like, the response you would expect is, Mom, what the fuck?
Right.
This is not what I asked for. This is bullshit. But he's like, thanks, Mom. Like, this is great. And she has this, like, she's looking at him with this smile that is like, she knows she did the right thing and got him exactly what he wanted.
Exactly.
Right? Like, she's so confident that was the right gift.
Only a mom, the way only a mom could look and give you that look. And be like, I did right. And, to his credit, he cannot stand to see his mother be brokenhearted again, and just openly accepts it. Like, yep, sure.
And then the credits are Bart playing the game exactly as Bart would play it. Just
exactly.
Putting,
You
use
have
the power
chosen
drive.
3 wood.
Which, why, if it's a putting game, why would they give you the option to pick a 3-wood?
Amazing. They programmed in the parking lot.
May I suggest putter?
Ball is in parking lot.
Oh man. But yeah, just a beautiful resolution to it, and a subversive one at that. He doesn't get Bone Storm. I really want to know what Bone Storm is. I've only ever seen Milhouse put his name in, and the 2 Goro dudes fighting in the commercial.
Yep, that's it.
But I guess I'll just have to learn to love the Waterworld arcade game that they show us for longer.
Insert more coins.
45 tokens later. But yeah, we went from this one on to like the next episode, unless you had something else, Dixon, you wanted to add.
No, that was all I had.
Yeah, we go from this one to is it Miracle on Evergreen Terrace?
Yep.
Yeah. Which is a 9th season episode.
Season 9, episode 11.
There you go. 9/11. Oh my God, it's all
Yeah, you did
sense.
it again, John.
Shit. No. Yeah, this episode about Bart again fucking up Christmas. Again, this is the Bart fucks up Christmas, the trilogy.
Yep.
He just can't stay away from the Christmas presents in this one. After everything is wrapped, Marge takes away everybody's alarm clocks so nobody can wake up early.
First, the cold open of this episode, I always think about this gag whenever I park in like a big parking lot outside of a store. Homer parks across 3 handicapped spaces and then gets out of the car and limps into the store. And it's such a slow shot where they just leave the camera there and Homer is just slowly limping for about 5 or 6 seconds into the store. And it just gets me every time. And I literally always think about it whenever I park at like a grocery store or a Walmart or a mall or something.
Yep.
Every time.
If I see somebody get out of a handicap car and they just walk into the store, I'm like, you could at least show a little effort. Like,
and I will say that is a staple of The Simpsons that I feel like shows like The Office, Parks and Rec, and Arrested Development like drew from it, and that was the show like bought into a bit. They did it for the first few seconds where you're gonna laugh and think it's hilarious, and then you're gonna stop laughing and start wondering how long this bit is going to go on. And then about 3 to 4 seconds later, when it's still going, it's funny again.
Yeah.
And The Simpsons became like a master class in doing that bit over and over and over again and letting you kind of sit in the uncomfortable, like, should I still be laughing? There's no laugh track. I don't know. And then it's like, is it really funny anymore? And then all of a sudden it's like, well, of course it's fucking hilarious because they've done it for so long now that I've come out the other side.
Starting with that first episode where he's like, I don't want to leave till our dog finishes. And they just sit there.
Exactly. You just sit with it.
Yeah. And I during that segment, they have enough time that you can watch Marge's expression change with yours.
Yeah.
Just like eventually she's just very disappointed and like, all right, but I guess that's just what Homer's going to do.
Yep.
But yeah, they go and do all of their, their Christmas shopping, get all their gifts and everything. And they wrap them up. And Marge is like, it's the year that it's going to be big Christmas. Marge is like, I've got a plan where we're all going to wake up as a family. We do this together as a family, and I'm gonna take all your alarm clocks and we'll just open gifts in the morning that way. I mean, I think kids will wake up no matter what. Doesn't even matter about the alarm clocks.
Nope.
But Bart has his plan of drinking 12 waters and going to bed.
And places them like evenly around
like a
the
ritual.
edge of the circular kitchen table. It's like a clock face.
Yeah. Just has to like make it happen that way. It's his process, I suppose. But yeah, like that whole, we get a dream sequence, that fucking awesome dream sequence.
Oh, great dream sequence.
Where he's flowing on a raft and everybody is just ramping up how much the pee metaphor
We're
would be.
number one.
Yeah.
We're number one. Give me a pee.
It's like gushing faucets and everything. But yeah,
Every time I see that episode, I keep just expecting Bart to wet the bed. And it never happens, but every time I'm like, surely he's going to wet the bed this time.
he gets to like the end of that river, and what's at the end of that stream? I mean, he should, probably in all reasoning, just piss himself. But subversion, he wakes up, and but we also do get treated to. He's like, haha, work like a charm, and immediately he's like, oh, like pressing on his bladder, trying to make it to the bathroom. But yeah, he even has like his own system down. At this point, it's clear to see that Bart thinks ahead when it comes to what Bart wants, as he like gracefully slides open the packaging and is like, oh my God, it's this fire truck that I've always wanted. Starts fucking around with it, immediately starts a fire in the house and burns the whole tree down.
The fire truck sprays water, and he sprays it like right at an electrical outlet and drives the fire truck into it and just starts a whole fire that's just right on the presents and the tree specifically. Somehow there are no burn marks on the carpet or the walls. But whatever. It is.
I love that gag. It's such like a kid thing to think too, where he runs to the sink and grabs the sprayer and tries to bring it out like a fire hose, and it doesn't do anything. And instead of being like, crap, he's like, who designed this house? Like they were supposed to just give him more length of rope.
I love how it all melts down into like a massive plastic disc.
Yeah. The package is still preserved.
Yeah. Like all the presents are melted into the tree, and it's just this big green Christmas cookie that is just sitting there on the floor. And he just rolls it out into the front yard and just shovels snow on. He's like, white snow covers all. White snow covers all.
Oh man. I love Bart frantically chanting things. I love those bits. Can't sleep, clown will eat me, and like that kind of thing. Always funny. The rest of that episode is basically like It's a Wonderful Life. It's the family is like out of money. Christmas is ruined. This episode I felt on the weaker side when it comes to like the family dynamic and the relationships that they're trying to. This was more of like it's funny circumstance and Bart's trying to cover up for it. Like, going from the very grounded and very kind of just dark first episode of Roasting Over a Fire with Homer trying to like cover up that he didn't get a bonus and still give Christmas to his family. And then like in season 7, getting the dynamic between Marge and Bart and like, am I cuddling my son too much? And does my son need to grow up? And like that kind of stuff. To hear, it's just, okay, Bart just lies to the family. They eventually find out and they have to keep the lie with him because they're sunken costs. They've already been given money under charity, under false pretenses and all that. And they wrap that fucking thing up real fast too, which is kind of...
Yeah. One thing I think is interesting about this progression of episodes, like in the first one, Bart fucks up and Homer ends up taking the brunt of the blame upon himself, right? He's like, this is the problem that I have to solve because I didn't get my Christmas bonus, and oh no, the big jar's gone.
Yeah.
And how do I solve this problem to give the family a good Christmas? And then in the second episode, Bart fucks up and the blame is put on Bart, right? And everybody's like, you're a piece of shit. Like, you have to deal with these consequences. In this episode, Bart fucks up and the whole family just is like takes all the blame on amongst themselves, and they're just like they've just like accepted that this is what Bart does, and that just has ramifications on them as individuals and as a family, and they just kind of have to deal with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's not, for the most part, for the majority of the time of the episode, the family doesn't know that Bart's lying, and then like right at the end they find out, and then Kent Brockman shows up, and all that kind of stuff happens very quickly at the end. But like there's no, from the time that Bart tells them, there's no like, how dare you? I can't believe you did this, you awful piece of shit. It's just like immediately they have to all take on the blame, and they start participating in the cover up, and like never once does anyone chastise Bart, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Well, they
Lisa,
choke him.
your hands are too weak.
yeah. Except for that bit. Yeah.
That's the extent of it at that point.
Yeah.
Is but I guess it is worth saying at that juncture, like the writers have laid it on thick, and Bart's conscience has gotten the better of him.
Yeah.
So he kind of is remorseful of his own accord, leading up to the family having to take the blame. Between the townspeople giving them all the money, to the orphans.
The orphans giving their only dollar. What did they call
Yeah.
it? Their something food, or their like food money or something?
I forget.
I forget what the term was.
But
yeah.
then we also can't just bypass the police report he files for the robber.
Oh,
who
yeah.
stole everything. He had an eye patch and a peg leg. It's just like the
Classic burglar.
Classic burglar. The general incompetence of the Springfield police force is
Gets me every time.
yeah. But I mean, that is something like comparatively to the previous two episodes, what we do see here is the growth of Bart's conscience in that, like, in the first episode, it was almost non-existent. Like, after everything happened, Homer took on everything, as you pointed out, Dixon. In the second one, it took Marge basically, just shunning Bart and the family ostracizing him becoming a pariah, for him to ultimately decide he was going to show them that he has grown as a character. And in this one, he is actively choosing to become remorseful, to recognize his faults after the town has poured in all this money to help the family. He actually feels that regret that he lied and everything. So there is that growth that you were pointing out before, John, that we can see season over season, which I think is important for the character.
Yeah, I think my main point of contention with this episode was that it just felt like it handled it a little bit more sloppy than some of the other episodes have for
It's
a character.
rushed.
Yeah, because it's like the moment he buries the tree out in the snow, I was like, all right, the snow will melt and people will find it. Again, I'm not being subverted at that point, and that kind of points to the episode having a little bit more of a weakness, in my opinion. More of that it's a Chekhov's tree that's just waiting to be revealed. So yeah, when it gets to that point, like that is something that, Bart usually doesn't fess up until it's too late, or he has to make good on his own terms. But here there's like a full confession from him to the family, and then a choking that follows. And then immediately after that, they just go to the door and lie to Kent Brockman about something.
Yeah, they immediately start covering up for Bart right away, because the whole town has come to the house and brought money to give them, because they've been moved by the story that, they got robbed on Christmas morning, and like they all pitch in and give them money. And it is that scene from It's a Wonderful Life where everybody comes into the house bringing money, and they're all so touched by it. And then Homer, they get $15,000, and Homer immediately just goes out and buys a car and loses control of it on the icy road, and it's just like they have to bail out of the car and just rolls out onto an icy lake and just breaks through and sinks to the bottom. So they now have no money to return to the townspeople who have been so generous to them.
Well, and they could have had $3,000 to at least return to the townspeople had Homer not been like, "Is this car $15,000?"
Yeah.
It is now.
Yeah, I love that when it like goes onto the ice and just blows up underwater. Homer's like, "Oh, I knew something like this was gonna happen." It's just-
I like when the family comes down and first discovers that there's no tree anymore, and like, holy shit, what happened? And Bart's like, I saw a burglar, and the whole family's like, oh my god, I can't believe it. And Bart says, since when is Christmas just about the presents? Aren't we forgetting the true meaning of this day, the birth of Santa?
yeah.
And Marge says, Bart's absolutely right. This is the one day that shouldn't be about material things. It's literally the only thing Christmas is about.
It's
just-
true.
It's
Oh my
the
gosh.
material things holiday. It's
Yeah.
just-
Obviously. As somebody who just went Christmas shopping all day today, yes, I agree.
Go capitalism.
Yay. Fellow consumers for Christ. The episode, I don't feel it has like as many remarkable jokes as Marge Be Not Proud does. I think that this is when the series is kind of starting to slow down.
Yeah.
So we get into like what season would you say? Where's our bar? 11 or 12 that things drop off?
I
Or is
think
it sooner?
I think it's actually pretty strong through season 11.
Okay.
12 I think drops pretty hard, but I think it's worth watching through 13 because that is the Lisa Becomes a Buddhist episode and the Maud Dies episode, which I think are both like excellent classic Simpsons episodes.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it's kind of does. I think really the first 13 seasons are where all the gold is.
Yeah, I think if you're arguing for pure golden age, it's season 3 through season 7, maybe 8. After that, you do start getting a little more of the hit or miss, and the pacing kind of gets off. But to your point, Dixon, I would agree. Like watching up to at least season 13, you're not going to be disappointed, and there are solid episodes in all of those. Then you get the distinct drop off, and then apparently now it's good again, is what I'm hearing and reading. It's
I believe it when I see it.
No.
Yeah.
I've heard that so many times, and I've gone back to it and watched new episodes and just been disappointed
Yeah.
every time.
Are you talking about Marvel movies?
No.
Okay. Wow. I'm just pretty sure that you said the exact same thing about Marvel.
no, I
movies.
have heard that about Marvel movies, and I have had that experience. But I never really liked those in the first place.
It's
and
true.
the Simpsons, I really loved for the first 13
Kind of amazing.
seasons.
You
So.
keep going back to Marvel movies every so often.
I
considering
know.
Never started from a place of love.
I'm like, oh, I like that director, and like, oh, wait, they bastardized that. Okay, oh, I like that actor. Oh, they didn't let them do anything. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, but I think there are some decent gags in this one. Like, I like when they go to the old folks' home to try to cheer. They're like, well, we'll cheer ourselves up by going to the old folks' home and like bringing them some Christmas cheer. And they're all so happy and dancing around. And Grandpa's like, the pill man came by and gave us all some pills. And Jasper's like,
full of holiday cheer.
yeah. Jasper's like, I can't feel nothing below my chin. Dancing around.
Yeah, I would argue that while the first 2 episodes you had us watch, John, were really, really good episodes for the character building and exposition that's going to come with the core family members. This episode was definitely stronger from a joke perspective with ancillary characters between the police, the old folks' home, everybody from the community in general. Like it's that's where like the vast majority of the punchlines and the jokes are coming from.
Yeah.
Are from everybody there.
Yeah, which
Like
I always
Mr.
love.
Burns comes to their house and he's like, "Does anyone have change for a quarter?
button.
For a button? Yeah, just for a button."
Anybody have change for a button?
Which, yeah, I love it when the community comes out, when we get like to see more of the town. Obviously, like 22 short films about Springfield, short stories in Springfield is like a great
Cletus
episode.
the slack-jawed yokel.
Yeah, that one, Skinner and the superintendent. Yeah, these are like always great to see those characters when they come in. Or like when Ned loses his house and they like build him a new one.
Yeah.
That's a fucking great sequence when he has his mental break.
Yeah. And again, that's another great point that's kind of has commonality with what's happening here in this episode is, you know, you get to the end of the episode and again, subverting your expectations. Marge is super excited because at first she's like, oh, the community has forgiven us because everybody's like happy to see them.
Yep.
And then you realize they're just stealing all their shit. And it's kind of like the same with that episode where, you know, they build the house for Ned and it's just really, really wonky and terrible.
Yeah.
And he then just has like a total complete meltdown about it. But it's one of those things I love that the show does repeatedly with the community is the community comes together, but you don't always. It harkens back to Homer when he has the sexual harassment suit, and Moe comes like, and Marge is like, "Oh, really?" When Homer's like, "I don't have a friend in the world," and Moe's like, "We got the real dirt on Homer Simpson," and the bidding starts at 1,000
G's. Like, holds up all of the documents he has. Yeah, those bits of the community kind of coming out. And Moe says something to the degree of, we couldn't stay mad at yous no more, so we just decided to take everything that you like owe us in your house. Which is like, it kind of, I don't know other episodes where they violate the canon beyond like Treehouse of Horror, like, oh, in the next episode, their house would have to be burgled or they have to get all of their fucking shit back. This is one where it just feels like they just do it as a gag. It's great. But I don't know of any others where they don't end with their house is totally fine. Like
well, John, the thing is that you have to understand that, like while it seems like Homer and Ned Flanders could become friends, in 7 days, like everything's going to return back to normal.
That is correct. That is absolutely
respond
correct.
with "Ay caramba," and that's the spirit.
Stupid, sexy Flanders.
Exactly.
I mean, it is where you draw the line of like what consistency you want in a cartoon and how you maintain that canon. And it's something like that I'm more impressed with Rick and Morty for maintaining, because Rick and Morty is like fucking batshit cocaine crazy. And yet they have a very kind of strict set of rules that they adhere to. And it comes out to have like, they'll keep a record of everything that's happened before, no matter how fucking insane it is, that they can track it. The Simpsons doesn't bother because it's been over 20 years of The Simpsons now. I don't know how many. What is it? 30?
It's as old as me. It started in 1989.
Yep.
So
there
it
you
is
go.
34 years old.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you got 34 years of it, and Bart and Lisa are still the same age, and a lot of these other things kind of happen. But yeah, it's just interesting to note like when they think that they should make a choice and keep it, and when they're like, meh, we'll return everything, reset, see how it goes. But yeah, like I've only ever known Treehouse of Horror to pull things off, like killing characters, doing that aside from the mod episode, which was intentional and needed for them to proceed, I guess.
Or the behind the music episode, which I fucking love.
Yeah. Or the clip shows where it doesn't really matter if Snake gets into their house and holds them at gunpoint.
Right.
Whatever. So yeah, it's always kind of fascinating to see that. Dixon, you mentioned the episode where Lisa becomes a Buddhist. I think it's called She of Little Faith. Where Mr. Burns, the church is in need of funds, and Mr. Burns steps in to help them by capitalizing on the church, and he's like sells out the podium to advertisers. It's got like Southwestern Bell, which is a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yep.
A bunch of other companies kind of rotating through it, and in the process of all of that, Lisa decides that religion is not for her. She's taking umbrage with the fact that they've accepted way too many donations and have way too much profit to actually foster any kind of sense of spirituality or belonging outside of like capitalistic exploitation. So she becomes a Buddhist, and I watched that episode. I know that y'all didn't, because it was kind of like a last minute thing that I sort of added to the pile because I thought about it and I was like, it has Christmas in it somewhere there too. And then when I watched it, I was really surprised because it is one of those views, those kind of like rare glimpses of the family making like the wrong choice in trying to do something. Like at least in season 7 with Marge Be Not Proud, the overcorrection comes from a place of love, of like trying to understand and recalibrate. Mm-hmm. But here, Lisa's already become vegetarian at this point, and she's starting to develop this identity of somebody who stands outside of the family's like norms. You don't make friends with salad, everybody. I would know. People sing that at me all the time.
You don't make friends with salad.
You don't make friends with salad. What? It's a catchy song, Mom. But yeah, like it's interesting here because when she announces that she's a Buddhist after doing some research, so like there's a whole conversation where Bart is like, why don't you become a Presbyterian? She's like, gross, no. And he lists off like a bunch of other similar like Christian faiths. And she's like, no, I'm not going to just pick at random and do this. I'll go do my own research. And she finds Richard Gere, of all people, at like a Buddhist temple nearby with Carl and Lenny. And like,
I forgot about
Carl's just like, oh yeah, if I didn't have inner peace, I'd go psycho on everybody all the time. And they talk about the Dalai Lama and how he's the reincarnation of Buddha. And Lenny's like, who's Buddha? Like still just meditating in this temple. It's just great side character pieces. But yeah, after she announces she becomes a Buddhist, like Ned Flanders has a whole thing where he's like, my God, my Satan senses are tingling. Come on, kids, we need to run to the shelter. And Todd and Rod are like, when are we going to leave? And he's like, I don't know, but maybe never. And they're like, yeah. But yeah, like the whole
Is that
Simpsons.
the same episode where he's reading the book and he's like, Harry Potter and all his wizard friends went straight to hell for practicing witchcraft?
No.
And they're like, yay!
That's a different episode. I got that. I got Flanders mixed up in the Simpsons roasting over an open fire episode too, because there's an episode where they go to watch Lisa play sax and Rod has a violin solo and Flanders is crying and Homer's like, come on, Flanders, he's not that bad. Just fucking great bit. But yeah, actively Marge starts trying to thwart the exploration that Lisa's having. Homer like joins in on it and they decide they're like two agenda items at the church. One is, when do we get paid by Mr. Burns? Which is a bunch of great gags with Burns in an episode of him like saying things before the contract is signed and laughing at somebody and trying to use a smoke bomb to get away, but he's too slow and it just dissipates. But like after the church gets its money, the second thing that they turn to, and Reverend Lovejoy says, is Marge's devil child. And Marge is like, she's not a devil. She's just confused, and becomes Marge's goal to proselytize her back into the faith. And like, they use Christmas as the leverage that they need because they know most kids want something for Christmas. That's going to be what it is. And if you're a Buddhist, you don't get to participate in Christmas. It's a funny,
and you don't want anything.
Yeah.
Right?
And you don't want anything. And it's interesting because it's like, there's this kind of this inversion of, it's not only criticizing, you know, like the people who want things, even if they're Buddhists, like Lenny and Carl are like ignorant of what Buddhism is. They think it's one thing and it's not. And Richard Gere seems to understand it to be something else. And Lisa's trying to get it on her own. A lot of really like heavy meditations and reflections on religion and what it's supposed to be for. And then you get like Marge and Homer and them just assuming that like, that a Buddhist is this way. Like they're so uneducated about what Buddhism is as well. They make their own assumptions of how they could defeat Buddhism and how they could proselytize somebody back into the faith. And they like, it draws back on Simpsons opening. Was it Simpsons Over a Roasting Fire? Where
Simpsons roasting on an open fire.
Simpsons roasting on an open fire. Thank
like
you.
chestnuts.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to move at 1,000 miles an hour with my mouth here, but yeah, it draws back to Simpsons roasting on an open fire in the sense that Lisa wrote a giant like Santa wish list to Marge, gave it to Marge, and it just says pony several times.
Yeah.
And so in this episode, they supposedly get her a pony. They're all like, oh, we're doing Christmas, but I guess you can't participate. And it's like this clearly wrapped pony in like several different layers of wrapping paper by Homer. And she's like, oh my God, is that a pony? Like, and the moment that Maggie goes over, Marge is like, we're not trying to force you to do anything, but she kicks Maggie and tries to get Maggie to go over to her and give her a candy cane. She sees Reverend Lovejoy and is like, nope, it's a ploy. I'm not going to do it. And it's like, I think that's like the most malicious I've seen the family against a member of their own. Like, even when Lisa's vegetarian, they're like, okay, whatever. Like they mock her, but they also are like, that's your choice, I guess. There's
this
not
is
really
lamb,
a lot
not
of, like,
a lamb.
Yeah. There's a lot more ignorant kind of like, I don't understand what this is, but there's not like a trying to make her eat a hot dog, trying to make her do things. Lisa feels that pressure on herself from the social situations. But here it is actively everybody in the family like, sucks for you. You got to miss out. They don't try to accommodate or understand what she's going through. And it felt dark in that sense. Like I felt like it went back from what 13, like season 9 and Bart kind of like developing his conscience. Even the moments in that episode, nothing felt kind of as dark as when it was season 7. And then in season 13, it's like right back to it with this kind of like question and Lisa exploring doubt and being allowed to explore doubt and her family like panicking and not knowing, because I guess it's part of the nuclear identity for them to all be in the same thought process.
Yeah. I mean, I think, You know, if I'm going back in time to one of the earlier episodes, there's the one episode where, Marge tells Lisa to just smile at everybody and they'll just accept her, and that's how she should, even if she's feeling sad, that's how she should approach everything. To Marge, then, like, when she sees Lisa go out and smile and not feel authentic and have people say, oh, I used to think you were this way, but now because you're smiling, it's fine. Like, pulling her back into the car and saying, hey, if you need to feel this way, you just need to feel it. To now this, where she's essentially being denigrated for a very, very personal choice. I mean, like, if we're being real in real life, this is the kind of shit that makes kids say, I want nothing to do with my parents and or family. Like,
Yeah.
This is what estrangement is. And it kind of sucks that is where they kind of place the rest of the characters in that family unit, because, it would be one thing if it were everybody else in the community treating Lisa that way, but the family unit eventually comes around to it. And maybe they don't understand it initially, but they're at least not actively trying to prevent her from feeling that way. But the very fact that they're taking steps to undermine her decision in this very personal choice is kind of it's a step back for sure. In the writing in that regard.
I think too, like, Christianity is just weird, right? Where, like, there's, the mandate is to evangelize, to convert everybody. Oh, if your family member is not a believer, they go to hell.
Yep.
And, like, you end up having these malicious acts that are coming from a place of love from the people doing them, but that are malicious toward the person receiving them.
Yep.
And, like, it's just a very odd dynamic where it's like, that is objectively the wrong thing to do with your 8-year-old daughter who is upset with the blatant hypocrisy that she is seeing at church and rightfully rejects that and thus wants to explore other religions. Like, the way to correct that is not to bait her with Christmas presents and to, like, remind her of all the things that, hey, you get to do this if you're in our religion. Sorry, you don't. If you're part of Buddhism, I guess you don't get to do that. But, like, that Marge thinks that's the right thing to do, right? And it's just, like, it's not an inaccurate representation of how people feel in Christianity when this type of thing happens.
Yep. And I mean, you see kind of like the pieces of that when Homer becomes a heretic, like where Marge is like basically telling him, I'm going to have to tell our children that you're wicked, like, which is a ridiculous statement to make. But again, to your point, Dixon, like, within the Christian faith, that is a 100% acceptable way to treat somebody who has basically said, I'm not going to church. I don't know what I believe anymore. And so, yeah, I mean, from that perspective, at the very least, it is relatable in that I can see, like, this is, if you're in a hardcore, or not even necessarily hardcore, but just devout Christian family, this is probably the response you're going to get to somebody. Like, I mean, when I came out to our mom initially as agnostic and said, hey, I feel like I'm agnostic at this point in time. Like, the response was, well, that's how you feel now, but we'll see how you feel when you have kids, because it changes everything. And, like, just the dismissiveness of, this is how I am feeling and how I'm going to feel. And the fact that I've been told repeatedly, like, oh, well, when you get older, you'll probably feel this way. It doesn't necessarily, like, I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case. But to this episode's credit, like, that is exactly how somebody might respond to that. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's such a hateful thought to somebody who is a devout Christian that their family member might be going to hell, that they like denial is a reasonable human response to something like that, right? Where it's like, well, you'll come back around later. That's just you being, like a figuring your shit out, but, like, you'll get there and you'll come back around. And that's, like, it's not a helpful or effective way to hold that conversation, to acknowledge the things that you're feeling. But it's a self-protective way for your mom to just be like, I can't deal with this right now.
It's a fight or flight response. And that is, I mean, the problem really is just that, like religion for a lot of people is a core aspect of their being, and for it to be directly challenged, it kind of shatters a bit of that core. And I mean, how would I respond to the same thing?
It's your
You know?
identity.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
At some point, you gotta, that's like, I mean, I think I've told the story to maybe both of you, but like when I talked to Dad at one point after the pandemic, he had kind of gone through everybody's gone through changes because of the pandemic, and you appreciate things more. And I was talking to my dad, and he was just like, "Do you believe in God?" And I come from I guess, devout enough Catholic family. They mostly go to church. And I was just like, I think I finally worked up the courage and was like, no. And that was how I said it, which that's the courage you need to work up, I guess. But he just kind of responded. It wasn't dismissive. I would say this is like a big milestone for my dad. I'm super proud of him, which he just was like, I know you're a good person, and that's all that matters. And like, I had to resist the urge to cry. I was just like, that's way too much for you to say to me right now. I need to leave. But yeah, just like that moment, it's like, watching Marge try to quell Lisa's curiosity and her exploration of other belief systems, and also watching them have like kind of almost like the fencing their different ideologies together, where Marge is like, oh, you came back to Christianity at some point later in the episode, when Lisa learns that like Buddhism is all about reducing the amount of suffering and want that you have, but it does not, it's not heresy in Buddhism to celebrate other religious holidays, to be happy for other people, to recognize these things. And so like in that way, it becomes a superset of how you experience other religions. And so Marge was just like confused, because for most people who are in Christian faith, it is the one true faith, and that puts it in opposition to any other faith. And thereby you have to have a dichotomy where you're clashing. Mm-hmm. One of you has to be right and one of you has to be wrong. But in Buddhism, everything is right and there is no wrong in a way. The only wrong is like wanting more materialistically and, whatever else you might be attached to. So it was just kind of funny to watch them trade blows, where Marge is like, well, you're not going to get that. And she's like, well, I wouldn't want it anyway, because I'm a Buddhist. And Marge is like, ugh, like I got to think of something else, to eventually becoming accepting of it and just being like, look, we just love you, like no matter what. And we want to, I think that it ends on that kind of sweet note, that sentimental note of like the family has to accept it and they have to grow with it and understand. And especially after the pony facade that they put on, which that pony is like Milhouse and Ralph in like wrapping paper. They realize that what's more important, like chasing off your family member when trying to proselytize them, or accepting them even if they have differences from you. And it's a bit less realistic than probably most of the real world is when it comes to if you're a zealot or you're really devout in a way. But it's one of those things where like I watched it, it warmed my heart and I wanted it for other people. I was like, hell yeah, I want other families to, you have to go through that. There's that tear at your identity. That dismissiveness comes from a place of, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to entertain the idea that I might be open to this. But then when you get over that hump and you're like, the person matters more than the thing that they're saying, like, I want them to be around me. And
yeah,
Marge says at the end of that episode, I'll pray double for both of us, which is the compromise that Marge makes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a sweet compromise. And I think that that's like an okay thing to say. It's like, all right, that means you're practicing your faith and I'm practicing mine, and like totally on the same kind of page here.
Yep. And it goes back to the point I was making to Dixon. And that is like, as a parent, you're fucking figuring shit out for the first time when your kids are coming to you and saying, hey, I am doing this. I'm feeling this way. I'm doing whatever. And sometimes you don't feel fucking equipped to handle that. And you're just like, man, that I don't know how to respond, you know? I guess the important thing is at the end of all of it, John, you're just saying, just like on TV, and then you trip over an ottoman as you walk over and the laugh track kicks in and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, are there any other thoughts on that episode of that concept? I know y'all haven't watched it, but
I have, just not recently.
It's not recently,
but,
sorry.
Yeah. I would just say, everybody out there, go watch Silence by the great Martin Scorsese. It's very interesting clash of Christianity and Buddhism, and it's a interesting pairing with that episode of The Simpsons.
And to those who watch it, I say trample.
Yes. Please, for God's sake, trample.
But yeah.
Outside of that, I think, to to move us towards a topic you had brought up, John, that we could kind of discuss with these episodes, like I wanted to talk just a little more in general sense about like Christmas episodes or Christmas, like
holiday specials
in general.
The Star Wars holiday special,
Yeah,
of
God.
course.
Life Day, baby.
Hey,
I tend to prefer them to be more in alignment with what The Simpsons does, and that is just, you've got established characters, you've got a holiday of some sort, in this case Christmas, and the plot isn't so much based around like the overproduced, here's what the holiday really means.
Yeah.
But is more organic and feels like something like a plight that you or someone you know or someone you've helped or someone you've been helped by has gone through, like with regards to that holiday. And I feel like for the most part in the episodes we watched, the showrunners did a really good job of compartmentalizing what Christmas is from just a general holiday, the intent of it, sell, buy, and also like the stresses that it can place on a family to deliver from the perspective of having a Merry Christmas and what that effectively means, the emotions and everything that kind of comes with it versus something as hammy as the Star Wars Christmas special.
Yeah.
And
or like any number of sitcoms that probably have one with a family hugging at the end. And
yeah, the awe track. I mean, that's the other thing I love about The Simpsons is there isn't a laugh track. So the emotions you feel, the laughs you have, they're authentic as opposed to
induced.
Yeah, induced by just the fucking mirror neurons in our brains being like, oh, because other people are doing this thing, I have to feel that same way and I have to do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say to trudge up something that I tried to put down earlier and continue to put it down, Coming Home for Christmas had a scene, and here's kind of where I'm going with it, where it did the same thing. Santa, Jonathan Taylor Thomas in a Santa suit, goes to a children's hospital because he's lying to a police officer about smuggling goods across the border. Who hasn't been there? And to keep up with the bit, he is like, we were going to give these gifts that are all stolen goods. He just happened to be an accessory to these sick kids in this hospital. And they sit through like 50 kids in a terminal hospital and give them gifts, and each one of them walks off. And then the last one, his name is Esteban, and he's like, what do you want for Christmas, little boy? Do you want this handheld vacuum that's battery powered? And it's like the one laugh from the movie. And the kid's like, no, I just want to see my mom and dad. And it just like goes hard into that. And Jonathan Taylor Thomas is trying to act the shit out of it, but he can't act. And so like they put like glycerin tears in his eyes, and like the cop is crying, and even the dude who burgled all the shit is crying. And
maybe if you clean your room well enough with this vacuum, your mom will love you.
That's where you should have gone. Just double down on the darkness factor. But instead it hard cuts to all of them at payphones calling the people they love and telling them that they're going to be home for the holidays and how much they love them. And then we never see Esteban again. He's just been used to fucking gravitate towards these fucking
You're telling me that
dudes.
a token Hispanic character in this movie was just used to make an emotional point for the white lead characters and
in a
was never
Disney
heard from again?
film? My God, man. What world do we live in? But yeah, like that just goes to show, along with like the sitcoms that try to tug on your heartstrings with studio audience laughter and stuff. Like I sat through that scene and I felt nothing for my characters except contempt, because it took that moment for them to realize that they were awful people. And even after that, nobody helped Esteban get home or do any of the other shit. He was just a prop to make them think, oh, on the worst Christmas, just imagine somebody out there in the cold. Don't help them though. Just imagine them and be like, well, I guess I've got it good where I am. Like, that's a fucked up way to think. And that's kind of the way that a lot of individualism that's bred by capitalism teaches you to think. It's just like, yeah, use somebody else as an example, a stepping stool of how terrible in a situation you could be. That relativism, it pisses me off.
Actively practice Schadenfreude.
Yes, that's right. Go for it.
Feel better about yourself.
But yeah, I don't know. The other holiday specials and stuff, like it ranges between like completely asinine stakes. Like Life Day is a great example of that. And the fucking Star Wars holiday special is capitalism at its best. Like how can we fuck up a property as fast as possible by putting random weird shit in it and not getting director approval and trying to just usher it out the door using old money Hollywood to make the decisions. But then like anything after that is like, I was trying to think of 90s episodes to compare to The Simpsons and even animated ones. It's like Pac-Man had an animated series and they had and they had a season, they had a holiday episode with him and Miss Pac-Man and like they meet Santa and Santa's sleigh is like fucking stopped somewhere and Pac-Man has to.
Santa also a Pac-Man?
No, Santa's just a regular man and Pac-Man has to gobble balls to get Santa back on his feet.
This way, damn it. Waka, 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 waka.
But yeah, like there's just those things. It's like everything else that's a commercial property, they have like the Coca-Cola playbook where they're like, look, we need a fat white dude and a beard to show up somewhere here. His sleigh is stuck on the side of the road. His reindeer fucking running amok. And get Mario in here. Have Mario help him fix his pipes or some shit. And then get him back on the road. And that's what we consider like a holiday special. Whereas like you think about classics for holiday films, you think about these Simpsons episodes that we've talked about, and they have like this core nugget of heart in them. So when you get to the end of it, you feel like the characters have grown, but you've also had time to reflect on what the holidays mean. It makes you think so much more about what you're going to go do and who you're going to talk to and how you're going to interact with your family. Whereas when I watch Pac-Man wave goodbye to Santa Claus, I feel nothing. It's just shit. Even at the end of Year Without a Santa Claus, I feel nothing. I love that movie, but it's not good, and it's all about how Santa's overworked, and we need to stop. Which is we would think would be a good message, but it gets muddled in the fucking fever pitch dream nightmare shit that like Rankin Bass subject the audience to. Ryan knows all about that. Ryan did this whole gauntlet.
Yeah, I think the vast majority of shows, like specifically television shows that do any kind of Christmas special or have anything related to Christmas, those episodes are at best forgettable. They're literally just a set piece for the holiday and the consumerism that's based around that, and most of them typically follow like just pick one of the various formulas. There's a gift that's supposed to be given to somebody. Somebody either fucks it up or forgets to get it, whatever. There's somebody who wants to be home for Christmas and they're going to do any number of wacky antics to do it, to get there. And truthfully, like the shows that I will remember the most for Christmas episodes are animated. The Simpsons, obviously, for these. Family Guy for the one where Lois goes on the rampage because they run out of paper towels. And then, of course, South Park, because between the Critter Christmas episode, Red Sleigh Down, there's any number of like Christmas episodes with that show where you can't help but just remember it because either the characters are so memorable or the plot line is fucking hilarious and just absurd. That why wouldn't you remember that was a Christmas episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't Santa get raped by Christmas critters or something? Is it?
So they have a blood orgy at one point in time, and Kyle winds up becoming impregnated with the Antichrist and has to have an abortion performed to kill it.
Yes. The Imagination Land episode is where somebody gets raped by Christmas critters.
Yes, that's right. Kurt Russell and the cast
That's
from
right. It is
Stargate.
Kurt Russell. Yeah,
They're raping us.
Get out of there, Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
What if we send Kurt Russell? We already tried that.
And then, of course, Red Sleigh Down is one where Jesus sacrifices himself to save Santa. And so Santa tells us that we should all remember Jesus at Christmas.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, my God. Yeah.
That's funny.
I would say I'm right there with you. I think that like the animated episodes of any show that have, aside from, the Saturday morning shit I just listed with Pac-Man, like that stuff, that's for kids. That's got low stakes. But if it's like adult animation, great. That and dystopian, anything dystopian that has Christmas in it, because everybody has the shreds of what they thought. Yeah, Brazil has Christmas in it. That one is the darkest timeline of Christmas, where it has gone full on capitalistic and now has like advocates with signs that know that they're consumers for Christ. But yeah, like that, or like anything else where we don't have the same power grid we used to. We don't survive the same way we used to. And like, what does Christmas mean? It changes to be a different season of hope. And it's like usually used as this message of like, there's light and darkness and that kind of thing. But it never tends to have like all right, we're all going to say the prayer for Jesus now. Christmas has taken on a duality that's really interesting to me, where it's the Coca-Cola Christmas or it's the actual Christian Christmas. And people seem to conflate them constantly. I wonder why. But yeah.
And I think, like, Mark, to your point about most Christmas special episodes being this formulaic thing, they almost function as commercials for Christmas, right? Where it's like, you get the kids excited about getting gifts and they ask their parents for shit. You get the parents thinking about, oh yeah, I got to buy shit because it's Christmas, right? And like, it's under the guise of, oh, it's the spirit of giving and joy and family and the holidays and blah, blah, blah. But it's really just about consumerism. It's like the most thinly veiled shit imaginable. And like, I think the reason that this trio of Simpsons episodes is actually meaningful and we think about them around the holidays is because they cut through that. And either they talk about the reality of that consumerism, like in Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, or they just cut harder into family dynamics and relationships and use Christmas as a way to explore those things rather than having it be the star of the show and just be like, yay, we're buying things for everyone. It's just like you're going to forget that shit immediately after you watch it. And then you're just going to remember, oh, yeah, I got to go to Walmart and buy some shit.
Yeah. Got to buy whatever that thing was. Flowers or a Google Home or some shit. Yeah.
I mean, almost everything is a commercial at this point, but like Christmas specials seem more so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, they're all sponsored by something. Most of the specials are like, buy whatever. I mean, that's how the actual like Krusty special started.
Right. Yeah.
That joke.
Brought to you by ILG.
Yep.
But yeah. Are there any other thoughts that y'all had on holiday specials? Is there any particular holiday special beyond Simpsons ones? Or these episodes aren't really specials. They're just straight up episodes.
They're episodes.
They're just planned around that time. They don't really do it up. It's not a clip show. None of that stuff. But is there any particular other holiday episodes that y'all call out that you can think of off the top of your head? Like,
mostly just the Star Wars holiday special.
Well, that one lives with you for different reasons.
I mean, I really do think, like I said before, the vast majority of them are so forgettable because, as you aptly pointed out, Dixon, like there's nothing to them. They're the equivalent of chewing gum. Like once they've lost the flavor of the consumerism piece, you're going to forget them because there's no real connection you're making with the characters in that particular episode, outside of just seeing like, yeah, they're trying to get whatever, like they want for Christmas or blah, blah, blah. And I think the thing I like about the Simpsons episodes that we've watched is that Christmas just happens to be happening around that time, maybe as a piece of the plot device to set up whatever the family is going to go through, but you could have put them at any other holiday, any other time frame going through that same thing, and I feel like it still would have resonated just as much as it did with us had it not been Christmas. Like, the stakes are thrown in there that it is Christmas because for a lot of people who maybe aren't at the same like level of understanding for the episode, or they're having trouble connecting with the characters, it's going to drive home that remaining impactful piece of this is the time when, everything is supposed to work out for families and we're all in that feel good mindset.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I feel like these are, I equivocate it to the way Pixar films were before a certain point, i.e. when Disney acquired them, truthfully. And that was like, they were timeless in their presentation of their characters. Like they were just built a different way. Whereas something like Shrek just does as many pop culture references as it can at any point in time.
Yep.
And so like once you move outside of the scope of those pop culture references, the movie loses any and all of its luster. These Simpsons episodes are built in a timeless kind of capacity where you can watch them at any age, even if you didn't grow up with The Simpsons. You can identify with the characters and you can really feel the impact and the stakes, whereas other Christmas episodes and specials are just, fluff and filler.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm thinking now that is kind of a curveball from this, but I remember distinctly when I was in college and the Colbert Report did a Christmas special.
Oh.
And it was awful. And like the Colbert Report, I think is like one of the greatest things that has ever existed on television.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm mourn the death of Stephen Colbert. It's a shame that he's not on TV anymore and can't provide incisive commentary into our lives anymore the way that he used to.
Yeah, different Stephen Colbert has taken the throne.
No, I think that's a different guy. Yeah, yeah.
It's spelled differently.
But like the Colbert Report is this incredible show, this parody, 22-minute news comedy show that is just eviscerating Bill O'Reilly and Fox News and all these things. It's just done so well. And then he did like an hour-long Christmas special where like John Legend came on and played the piano and like they had redid the set and had a Christmas tree and Colbert got to like sing and dance and stuff. And it was like, this is just, this is stupid. Like this feels like Comedy Central was like, we need an hour of airtime.
Yep.
Like for you to do some random thing that's not your normal show.
Let's bring some
and
viewers in.
Colbert was probably like, oh sure, I get a chance to like celebrate my favorite holiday and have some celebrities on and joke around. Sure, why not? And it's just like, was the most, it was just weak shit. Like there was nothing there. And I was like, this is not what this show is. Like if you're going to do a Christmas special on Comedy Central, don't have Colbert host it as his parody Bill O'Reilly character. Like that doesn't work. Like it's just not going to flow well.
I think the right way to have done that, having never seen that, would have been to have had Colbert instigate a Christmas special to prove that we should be putting Christmas back in people's mouths. Like they're taking away what Christmas could be from us.
He did lots of War on Christmas segments on the Colbert Report, which were all hilarious.
Yes, you should do a War on Christmas thing.
And if they did that more into like an actual show and just like hyper focused on that, that could have been pretty fucking funny.
Make it his like character arc where he realizes at the end, but he can't accept it, that like, you know what, there is no war on Christmas.
Yeah.
And do like the mission accomplished.
Fucking Starbucks in their red cups.
Do the fucking mission accomplished banner or George Bush gag. Like do that shit.
Yeah, well,
be
and
hilarious.
he still would have had his fucking like notice list too.
Yeah.
For any and everybody that would have been on notice at that point in time. Like,
Yeah. So it's just like, okay. I'm sad that didn't go over well, Dixon. That sucks, but I'm not watching Colbert Report anymore because it's not on, sadly.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to go back and watch old Colbert Report episodes about like the George Bush administration, although they are excellent.
Yes.
But it just feels weird to go back and watch jokes about news that happened 20 years ago.
They put it in the news archive and I'll be happy as long as it goes there.
Yep. Now you have to tune into John Oliver, who is like essentially the last man standing from all of the.
I actually really like Jon Stewart's Apple TV show.
I know, but it got canceled.
Yeah.
Oh, it did? Oh, fuck. I didn't even
because
realize
he was going to
that.
do China
there you go.
and something else, and Apple took issue with it. So
that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So John Oliver is currently last man standing.
Oh my God.
Rough.
That was quite the tangent.
Yeah. Man. Speaking of old shit that you don't go back to and watch that often, I watched a Charlie Brown Christmas recently as well. Which I have no idea how to feel about it anymore. I think I liked it as a kid, but I don't know if it was like boomer instilled.
All I really remember from it as a child was they had that shitty little Christmas tree. And that's kind of all that I retained.
They do a whole monologue at the end with Linus about
Jesus Christ the Lord. Yes.
Oh, I remember that now. Yeah.
He gets out there and talks about that.
Yep.
But leading up to it.
He's like reciting scripture, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's reciting scripture. But leading up to it, Charlie Brown just walks around being depressed. He's like a 42-year-old man in like a 7-year-old's body.
Yep.
And so he's just like, I'm depressed. There's way too much consumerism around Christmas now, which fair fucking point, my friend. And he just rails against that for the entirety of it. But it almost feels like because of the cast, which they're all like kids voicing the characters, the dead silence, because I feel like this was an early era of trying to make long form animated specials. Like everything feels like it's like a proto YouTube video where some kids were fucking around that were at Jesus camp and they just decided that they wanted to make this kind of movie happen. And like the pacing between dialogue delivery, the emotions, the gags, they all feel so disjointed. And yet I can't separate it from the sense of nostalgia I have for it, where like I can't judge if it's good or bad anymore. I can only just experience it every time I watch it. I don't have no opinions about it. So it's like, it's not great and it's not bad. And it feels like at moments it is at all moments, it feels like it's from a genuine place.
Yeah.
Like before Charlie Brown really started to get commercialized, because he was still Charlie Brown and it wasn't the Snoopy show or whatever the fuck happened to it.
Yeah.
And now they just make shit so Snoopy can fly around and be the Red Baron or whatever the fuck's going on with him. I don't know. He's in World War I at times.
The Beer Baron?
Yeah, he's the Beer Baron.
Yeah, I mean, the piece of Charlie Brown, because I was a little older when, we would watch those as kids. Like it did not resonate with me. I found his character and the writing to be far too melancholy for the vast majority of any and all of the specials.
Yeah.
Where I was like, okay, it's animated and I like the animation part, but I don't like the way it makes me feel. I equivocated almost to the music of the Beatles. It's great music, but it's very melancholy in the way that it feels. And a lot of people report me feeling depressed when they listen to Beatles songs. And I don't, denigrate them for that. Peanuts is kind of the same way in that it's, there's a lot of existential human condition style stuff that Charlie Brown seems to be going through. And I don't always necessarily agree with the resolution that they attempt to kind of, that I guess Charles Schwartz tried to or Schultz, Charles Schultz, sorry.
Schultz, yeah.
Yeah, Charles Schultz tried to like basically cram down your throat. Mercer Mayer went through a similar thing recently, who wrote like the Little Critters and Little Monster books and everything like that, where, initially it was like, oh, it's all about kids and like growing up, and he wrote all these really cutesy stories. And now in his older age, it's all become like uber religious and whatever. And so
People
I don't
need
know.
to believe in God now.
Exactly. And so I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of get it, but I think from a Peanuts perspective, the vast majority of people, it is, it was in the funny papers when they were kids.
Yep.
And then it was one of the more, I guess, cherished animated specials, kind of like The Grinch, and then any of the stop motion animations around Christmas and Halloween time. Like Peanuts did all the major holidays.
Yep.
And so I think that's why it resides in people's heads so strongly.
And I mean, the difference between it and The Grinch is The Grinch is written for kids.
Yep.
Like The Grinch is absolutely written for children to enjoy this fantastical story. And Peanuts is mostly written for adults. Like any of the humor that I saw in the Christmas special, like Charlie Brown talking to Lucy, and she's like, I never get what I want for Christmas. So I know what you're feeling, Charlie Brown, with this depression. And he's like, well, what do you want for Christmas? And she's like, real estate. And it's just like, that's a joke that's good for adults. And you can feel this like bitterness in the script, and all these kids are saying shit that's like way above their level. Like they would never say that to each other.
Though the irony being that they still could have acquired real estate at that time in their lives.
Yes,
So,
of course. Yeah, totally.
Easier for a 7-year-old in the 1960s to acquire real estate than it is for a 30-year-old to do it today.
Go figure. But yeah, so like I watched that recently because gearing up for this, I wanted to have some other lenses to look at. I wasn't going to watch sitcom holiday specials. I know how they're all going to go down, but Peanuts is different. And then I watched Moral Oral, which I've exposed Dixon to. You've watched all of Moral Oral, and that is like one of the darkest shows that I think I've ever seen. And the first episode that debuted on TV, it sucks because I noticed this. If anybody out there is ever interested in watching this show, if you rent it digitally, the first episode of the first season is not the correct episode. It's the order that they aired in. Adult Swim decided we should debut this show with a Christmas special, with the Christmas episode. So they showed the Moral Oral Christmas episode, which is the end of season 1. And it has parents who decide to get divorced. And it's a 10-minute long episode. So I don't think that's going to resolve real fast. And it's all about Oral figuring out that, one, he doesn't know it, but his brother is an illegitimate child to the family, has been born from an affair. But he thinks that means that his brother is Jesus. And that's the confusion, is him being like, oh my God, an immaculate birth, because he hears his parents and his dad accusing his mom of having this kid with somebody else. And he's like, oh, he's not dad's? That must mean that he's God's child. So he starts taking him around and telling him that he's like the second coming. And he's like, all right, if the kid gets wrathful, then I guess we're getting wrathful. And he starts throwing fucking shit on the ground and doing other bad shit. But yeah, it's like got that mix of consumerism and Christianity and then this darkness. And it ends with Oral just kind of like looking up to the sky and being like, I've got 2 minutes left for this Christmas. His dad's at a bar drinking himself under the table, and his mom is at home crying silently. And he's realized that everything has fallen apart. And he just goes, I know you can make a difference, God. And he just closes his eyes and starts praying. And the snow just continues to fall and credits roll. And nothing else fucking happens. And they decided that's the episode to start the series with. And like, no getting to know anybody else in this show. No wind up to that punch. It just gut checks you and then you go. And somehow it went on to have 3 seasons. So I watched that episode and I watched it right after I watched Charlie Brown, and it immediately just like leveled me. I was like, oh fuck, that's brutal. But I guess that's like really what you have to play with when it comes to doing a holiday special. It's either you're going to index really hard, you're going to go hard into the paint on your fucking beliefs and be like, everybody should be a Christian around here if you're celebrating Christmas. Charlie Brown fucking goes hard on that. Or you're going to go the opposite end and do a silence treatment and just be like, is there anybody out there? I don't know what Christmas is about anymore. And I don't know what to do. Like that's, ugh.
I will say, The American Office did a couple of Christmas episodes that are worth noting. In one of them, and again, their approach on it is either the consumerism aspect to create conflict amongst the members of the office, or basically raising the stakes in other aspects that are more of the spiritual. So one of them, let's see, I'll start with this one first. One of the members of the office, Phyllis, a woman, has always wanted to play Santa. And so there are 2 managers at this point in time in the show over the office. Jim, one of the co-managers, gives her permission to do it. Michael, the other co-manager, who has been Santa every other year up to this point, gets pissed off by this. And so instead just dresses as Jesus Christ to teach Phyllis. First, he comes out as Santa and invites people to come sit on his lap and attempts to pull one of the temporary office workers onto his lap, saying out loud, I need this. I need this. But when that doesn't work, Kevin, one of the accountants who's a little heavier set, comes to sit on his lap, and it goes horribly wrong. Like Michael gets winded, whatever, but eventually dresses up like Jesus Christ, calls the regional director or the CTO or CTO at that point in time, or COO, and is like, guess who I'm dressed as? And he's like, giving like clues about who he is as Jesus, but some of them are not right. He's like, I have the power of flight. And so it's just ridiculous for that reason. And then one of the other episodes that actually is one of the more memorable Christmas episodes, they're supposed to do Secret Santa. And this is where Jim and Pam, the couple that everybody who watches the show is rooting for from the beginning of the series onward. Jim has put together this teapot he got Pam's name and has put in all these gifts that are like essentially related to her and their relationship as friends. But he's also written a very heartfelt letter about his true feelings and hasn't told her at this point she's still engaged to somebody, hasn't told her that he loves her, everything like that. And so Michael, who gets a Christmas bonus that year, chooses to buy a video iPod for the temporary temp of the office. And then he winds up getting a hand-knitted oven mitt and gets pissed off that nobody else spent the money. And so he turns it into Yankee Swap. And so everybody like starts basically trading gifts and everything. And the teapot Jim got for Pam goes to Dwight, who's going to use it as a neti pot to clear out his sinuses. And so like that is one, I guess, Christmas episode where I'm like, okay, at least they're poking fun at the idea of the consumerism and the ridiculousness of like Michael basically buying and thinking that the amount that you spend
Equivalent values.
is equivalent to like how meaningful that gift is to the person that you're giving it to.
I mean, and that is like a reductive thing about Christmas is like people say like it's the thought that counts when you can't get them a gift, but the thought fucking counts anytime. And it's amazing that somebody will just show up and be like, I got you a thing, because like spending money is the thought, I guess, for most people. But when you sit and think about it, like for like 10 to 15 minutes even, you should know who your friends are and what they might want. You should know if one of your friends has every fucking Criterion Blu-ray and you have to get him a Barnes & Noble gift card.
Yep. Yep. But I mean, again, like the fucking commercials and consumerism, like it's like if my wife showed up with a car, like a $45,000 car with a bow on it. Like, yeah, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I got a new car. But then I'm going to be like, how much is this costing us a fucking month? And
That's
what
an
did it do
SNL
to
sketch.
our, like,
That's definitely an SNL
yeah,
sketch.
like what did it do to our credit, like to get this?
But yeah. Well, I feel like we've talked the holiday season out of this episode at
Yes.
this point. Are there any parting thoughts folks have? Any other fucking holiday movies, specials you want to call out? I know there's going to be a recommend or refute for later, but is there anything right now that you're like, this is a good holiday spirit movie, show, something? Besides those Simpsons episodes that we've talked about.
We've been working our way through Home Alone 1 and 2.
Okay.
You know, it's
John Hughes.
Yeah,
I mean,
John Hughes. It's Chris
Joe
Columbus
Pesci.
and Joe Pesci, and it is about negligent parents. So as a parent, you can always feel better that you wouldn't forget your kid.
You wouldn't put your kid in the attic.
Yes, exactly. But it's been at least enjoyable to kind of rewatch just the antics and and everything that's going on with the first two Home Alone movies. The third one is like meh, whatever.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
They didn't have Macaulay for that one.
no, they did not.
Yeah,
So yeah, completely different vibe. And then I always watch Nightmare Before Christmas around this time as well. So I dig just I read a book about that when it came out, like the painstaking like efforts they went to for the stop motion animation. And I just really appreciate everything that movie accomplishes from that perspective. I just hate that Disney is the owner now to the
Yeah.
rights of it. So
It's a bummer.
Yeah, I'm kind of a Grinch generally, but specifically about Christmas movies. Like, I feel like there is actually a shockingly small amount of good Christmas movies.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
so many of them are just absolute dog shit.
Yep.
It's like
Pandering.
I absolutely love It's a Wonderful Life. I think it's fucking incredible. Like, love Die Hard, love Christmas Vacation. Like, there are, a few movies that I kind of come back to around Christmas. And there are Christmas movies that are solid, like Christmas in Connecticut is good with Barbara Stanwyck. Like, there's some good, like, kind of classic Christmas movies, but for the most part, like
Holiday in Handcuffs.
Yeah.
there's so many bad Christmas movies. Like, my brother-in-law, like, every year wants to watch the live action Grinch with Jim Carrey. Like, that movie is terrible. Yet whenever he's in town for Christmas, it's like, well, this is what I have to do because my family's always done it since I was a child. I'm like, I don't give a shit. You're at our Christmas. Like, I'm not watching that. It's terrible.
Can't you just enjoy the fact that Jim Carrey had to suffer the entire time that film was being made? He said that the contact lenses burned and it took 5 hours for them to put him in makeup. Get some Schadenfreude, Dixon.
Yeah.
Serve
No,
yourself
I
up.
like, let's watch Jim and Andy instead. Let's do that.
Oh man, if there had been a Jim and Andy documentary about him becoming the Grinch and doing nothing. Oh man. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Like, a good Christmas film is few and far between, and there are some that like I can no longer judge because I've seen them too many times. They have some nostalgia that's rooted deep in what like my parents have liked. Like, I don't really think I like A Christmas Story. I just think that I tolerate it and that I can go through it.
I didn't even like that one as a
Okay.
kid.
Yeah.
And then, like, everyone's like, oh no, you got to go back and watch it. It's so good. I'm like, I just have no desire to do that.
Meh.
I don't know.
Yeah. And like the rest of them range from just like pandering to a little too like schmaltzy and ham-fisted. It's like right on that border of pandering. But I will say I did watch potentially the inspiration for Home Alone recently, called was it like Deadly Games Dial Code Santa Claus. You've seen it. You told me you saw it at a draft house once.
Yes, I have.
And it's like
I don't remember anything about it.
It's a French film about an insane man who escapes from a mall dressed as a Santa. And he breaks into this kid's mansion that's like Wayne Manor. And the kid is armed to the teeth like Rambo, but with kid weapons, and has to fend off this psychopath from his grandfather, like from killing his grandfather and doing other fucked up shit. And that movie was fucking wild. I would say that Home Alone definitely fucking knocks it out of the park from like a sentimental standpoint, and it knows what it wants to be tonally. This movie just did not know. And that's really the only recent Christmas thing besides Coming Home for Christmas that I've watched. And I haven't even watched It's a Wonderful Life yet. I need to get back to my tradition of watching that every year. The other one being the one that I would recommend being Ikiru.
I didn't know that was a Christmas movie.
The Kurosawa. I don't know that it's so much of a Christmas movie as I thought. I think about it more as a Christmas film because it takes place during like a snowy season in Japan. And it's basically the complement to It's a Wonderful Life, with, you know, a man being on the verge of death and thinking about what it means to be in a community and to contribute and to actually help people. And instead of seeing the world without that man as the example of what good he could have done, you see the world without that man and what he has done, like, and how it ripples through it. I think that that's just a fucking great kind of thing to take away during the holidays when you're going to start like the new year, and how you're going to treat people in the new year and that kind of stuff.
I would, for a dark comedy take on Christmas, I would definitely recommend Bad Santa.
Oh yeah.
Just because if nothing else, like, I do appreciate Billy Bob Thornton's, his character at least has a pretty good arc in that movie, and it's one of Bernie Mac's last films.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was it might have been his last film. I can't remember, but it was one of his last films.
Yeah.
But it's pretty solid. I never watched the second one, but
You
the
don't
first
have
one,
to.
yeah, the first one's pretty awesome. So
Nice.
I tend to feel like the best Christmas movies are more like Christmas adjacent
Yeah.
movies.
Yes.
You know, like It's a Wonderful Life is not really a Christmas movie, but we all accept it as one because the culture has just told us that it is one.
Snow
and they
equal Christmas.
Play it on TV around Christmas every year. Like Brazil is one of my favorite movies, and that's like are set around Christmas, but it's not really about Christmas.
Yeah.
Right. And like those are the ones that I tend to go back to and think about more around Christmas time, not ones that are just like about like, hey, it's Christmas, we should be hopeful and loving and together here as a family and doing nice things for people. And like those types of movies where Christmas is the front and center rather than the setting for a unique story, just don't tend to resonate with me as much. So
Nope.
Yeah. Well, if you out there have a particular favorite holiday film, doesn't have to be Christmas. It could be something like The Hebrew Hammer, for instance. Feel
Adam
free to
Sandler's
suggest-
8 Crazy Nights.
There you go. 8 Crazy Nights. Hey, who knows? Let us know what it is. I'd be curious. I'm trying to get my list of good movies to watch around the holidays. And I don't want to have to dip into like, here's just classic Hollywood stuff all the time. Because after a while, only so much screwball comedy and fast talking I can take.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I think we will wrap this episode up. We've talked through quite a bit of The Simpsons, through different holiday specials and kind of what they can bring to the table for folks out there watching. And we just talked all around about how we feel during the holidays, what we're looking for when we're watching something. I appreciate y'all coming in and humoring me watching 3 episodes of The Simpsons. That's a pretty easy ask, I would say, especially from those seasons. If I had made you watch stuff from older seasons or like later seasons, I'd feel bad.
It's like an hour and 6 minutes.
Yeah. Not bad at all. I have been your host, John Garcia, and with me as always,
Michael Dixon.
and with us sometimes.
Mark Garcia.
All right, folks. I don't know how to fucking end it. I should have gone the other way.
Goodbye, movie house.
Fuck, shit. Oh, God. I broke the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not end without ending on Dixon.
Thanks for putting up with our bullshit.
Foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, take it, Homer!
Hey, Rudolph, get your nose over here so you can guide my sleigh today.
Oh, Homer.
Then
And all the reindeer loved him, and they shouted out with glee, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history.
little...
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.